What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was neglected for being powerless but woke the Rinnegan? If you enjoy then please like share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. Mere moments after the sealing were completed, Kurumi's eyes returned to their original shine, a sign she snapped out of the genjutsu. A massive cage with huge golden bars that reached the heavens was the first thing that caught her eyes, inky black darkness surrounding her with fetid waters at her feet being the next. She recalled what happened that resulted in her being sealed in this dank cage. The last thing she remembered was seeing the same eye that once controlled her as she was forced out of Kushina's seal. A memory that made her sob in sadness as she quickly connected the memory to her current situation, her tears flowing without end into the dark waters underneath her. Her entire gigantic frame shaking from her cries. Kushina. Minato. I can't believe I got controlled again. By the same eyes no less. I never thought that the same thing would happen again. Now I am sealed within their sun. Forgive me Kushina, Minato. She cried and cried, having lost her good friend and guardian, Uzumaki Kushina. As Kurumi wallowed in her self-despair, little Naruto, barely 2 hours old now, was sleeping silently in a small wooden crib within the Spartan office of the third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, as said Hokage attended a village council meeting concerning his reinstatement. Standing beside the crib was a dog-masked Anbu, one of the best in service of Konoha, Hitaki Kakashi. He stood stoically with his spiky silver hair on his head, the restrained bodies of 3 of his fellow Anbu lying beside him. Despite the orders of the old cage, the men attacked the infant with murderous intent. Their screams of, "The demon must die," caught his attention before he appeared beside the crib, quickly restraining the 3 men before knocking them out, restraining them with ninja wire to prevent them from taking any further action. As a precaution, he stood by the crib, his eyes looking straight ahead, avoiding looking at little Naruto resting in the crib. "Dog, report," came the commanding voice of the old cage as he entered through the ornate double doors of his office, his experienced eyes quickly catching sight of the 3 disabled Anbu. His Anbu, quickly deducing that Dog subdued them all. Sandame-sama, Kakashi, Anbu codename Dog, quickly stood ramrod straight as he verbalized his report. The 3 Anbu on the ground decided to, as per their words, take justice into their own hands and tried attacking Naruto. Seeing their intentions, I immediately subdued them non-lethally, he spoke professionally. Behind his porcelain mask, his one open eye glanced towards the newborn before quickly looking back towards the angry Hokage in front of him. Take them to the interrogation room, Hiruzen commanded, anger and disappointment of equal measure in his voice. Let them know the hefty price of trying to harm Konoha's hero. In clouds of smoke, Kakashi's shadow clones burst into existence, each of them grabbing the restrained Anbu and taking them away to the interrogation department to await torture and punishment for their treasonous actions. Kakashi stoically stood where he was, not budging as the wizened Hokage walked in front of him as he headed towards the wooden crib that held the little figure of Naruto in it. "Dog." "No, Kakashi," Hiruzen spoke, his eyes not letting off Naruto's sleeping figure. "Would you like to take care of him?" Kakashi stood silent, his emotions hidden behind his porcelain mask. As an ANBU, the elite of the elite, they were trained to hide their emotions, suppressing them with all their might to prevent them from stopping them in their duty to the village. Yet right now, his eyes were looking elsewhere, desperately avoiding the tiny hero in the crib. Hiruzen said nothing within the deafening silence, understanding the lack of an answer from him. Kakashi was the 4th Hokage's student. After his father's suicide, Kakashi drove himself further into training and missions. The only respite he had was his teacher, Namikaze Minato, Naruto's father, whom he considered his own father after a time. Finally, the professor spoke. "Dog, you're off duty now. You can remove that mask." Kakashi stood stoically as he heard his leader's command, yet a slight tremble shook his hand as his hand reached for his mask. Slowly he held it before removing it, revealing the mask beneath the mask. Most of his face was covered by a blue cloth, except for his eyes, one of which was closed with a massive scar running over it. Underneath that mask, he could be called a handsome person, if only he would reveal his face to the world. Kakashi understood the Hokage's words, including their underlying meaning. He was not talking to him as one of his men, but as a fellow human. He hesitated. I can't. His one open eye barely glanced at the tiny newborn within the crib, covered with a clean sheet. He reminds me too much of his father, Kakashi said as his eyes diverted away from the baby's small tuft of blonde hair, hesitation and sadness clear behind his voice. Here, in front of the wizened cage with no one around, was the only place where he could show his feelings openly. I'm sorry. Don't be, Hiruzen replied, a smile on his face. My beloved Bawako was also killed. I do not blame anyone for it. Have we found anything there? Nothing whatsoever, Hiruzen spoke as he shook his head. Kurumi was not a biju that attacked people. Minato, from his marriage with the red-headed Kushina, became close to the biju within her, considering her a good friend who would help, not attack. And from what he knew, even Mito-sama said that she was just misunderstood. Mito-sama once said so as well. Then what happened? Kakashi asked. Inwardly his blood boiled. The thought of his teacher, Minato's, death brought anger to his heart, yet he smothered it with discipline and strength. Being Minato's last remaining student, the blonde-haired Hokage told him that the biju were just misunderstood, and that they were all nice, and only humanity's actions towards them made them what they were. I have no idea, Hiruzen spoke. No trace remained of anyone that attacked, and the only witnesses, aside from little Naruto, are dead. Kakashi's eye glanced at the baby before he quickly looked sideways, his grief affecting him so badly he nearly fled the room just to get away from his teacher's legacy. So what happens to him now? Who will take care of him? He asked. I cannot, for I will be far too busy with Konoha's restoration, Hiruzen answered. His godfather, Jiraiya, is out of the village, managing his spy network. And I believe he would not be a good choice for a father anyway, what with his activities. Everyone knew of Jiraiya, the self-proclaimed super pervert. A man with immense skill in the ninja arts, he was a seal master of the highest caliber, not to mention a cage-level ninja, one of the strongest alive and one of the elemental nation's best spy masters. Yet his habit of peeking into the women's baths for research, for his smutty book, the Icha Icha Paradise series, did not make him the best candidate to be a parent, something that Hiruzen's late wife Bawako would wail on him for in the afterlife were the cage to allow him to become one. Finally, the wizened Hokage reached a decision. I will place him in the orphanage, Hiruzen continued, holding the urge to reach for his pipe within his desk to reduce the stress he felt building within his head. We need to hide his identity as the last inheritor of Uzu and one of the last Uzumaki alive, not to mention his identity as the son of the Yellow Flash himself, he added before he stood up, Kakashi watching him all the while. He will mingle with the other kids, learn as they learn. He will have to be content without knowing his identity until he's strong enough to defend himself from assassination attempts. Kakashi just nodded. Just like the old man, Kakashi knew of Konoha's hospitality and their caring spirit. It gave Konoha the title of friendliest village amongst the people, something that he's proud to be a part of. But he just cannot bear to look at his teacher's son, not now. Maybe one day, after time healed the massive wounds in his heart, then he could watch him. But for now, he cannot. When will he be placed there? Tomorrow, Hiruzen answered, taking out his ornate tobacco box from within his drawer. Kakashi nodded in understanding as the Hokage lit the scented tobacco within his pipe with a small fire release jutsu, letting the smoke waft within the room, covering everything with its delectable smell. I'll pass him to the matron tomorrow morning. Kakashi just nodded, agreeing with his choice. Unknown to both of them, sinister forces were working their hands behind their backs, paving the way for a terrible future. Despite Naruto's status as a Biju's prison, a Jinchuriki, being deemed by the reinstated Hokage an S-ranked secret of Konoha, the members of Konoha's civilian council, a council that handled Konoha's civilian matters, who received this knowledge during the sudden council meeting began spreading the forbidden knowledge of Naruto being the demon's prison under hushed murmurs and silent rumors. Naruto's parentage being conveniently omitted from the forbidden information spread due to the counselor's hatred of the child. Eventually the whispers mutated, facts broke into lies, and in just one night, the entirety of Konoha knew of the so-called demon child, the demon with a human infant's form, wanting their sympathy for the chance to destroy them in the future. And they would not let such a child live a happy life. Oblivious to the spread of such vile thoughts, Hiruzen brought little Naruto to the matron of one of Konoha's orphanage, the numbers having grown overnight from the destructive attack done by the Kyuubi. The matron's cheeks were red and wet with tears, yet she was smiling as best as she could despite the manner of terrible event that had befallen her during the attack, something that made Hirazen's heart sting with pain, the assault on his beloved village still fresh in his mind. As he handed him over to the sad yet smiling matron, a feeling of happiness spread through his heart at the warmth the matron displayed in her eyes as she received the tiny figure of Naruto. As he left, he believed with all his heart that he made the right choice in passing Naruto to the orphanage. As the figure of the sandaime left the compound of the overflowing orphanage, the matron's smile quickly turned into a look of scorn as she glared at the demon child, the murderer of her family. An errant swipe of its tail destroyed her son's house, erasing it without even a thought. No one survived the massacre. Not her son, his wife, nor her grandchildren. Nothing. Their bloody bodies were dug up from the rubble, her son's body completely mutilated beyond recognition. Only his face, locked in absolute terror, let her know it was him. "I may have to care for you," she whispered, her tears falling again. But this time, her face was filled with utter rage and hatred at the infant in her arms. "But I will make your life terrible. You will pay for every second you hurt me and everyone in Konoha. I will not kill you." She shook her head. "No, death is too easy for you. I will make sure you suffer as much my son did. I will make sure of that." And so began Naruto's life in a man-made hell, born from a person's hatred, as the matron did her best to keep her promise. A baby was supposed to be cared for, full of love, for they were a new life, born to the world by their parents. Yet Naruto's early days were anything but. During his first couple of days he was starved, not getting any nutrition at all. As a baby, he did what babies did, he cried. Again and again his tearful shriek echoed throughout the halls of the orphanage, his tiny body flailing on the cold, rough earth that was his bed. He didn't even have the luxury of a proper room for him to sleep in, just a worn-out storeroom at the back of the orphanage. Yet the matron ignored his sorrowful tears, and when his screams got too unbearable for the old matron, she fed him, but in her own terrible way. She took a mug of hot milk and poured it directly over the screaming infant's open mouth. Her vengeful heart ignored the pain heard within the baby's choking sounds and pained tears. As she left the pained toddler, she glared. "That's barely a fraction of what my family went through, demon," she hissed before slamming the door to the tiny room that was Naruto's torture chamber. And that was only the beginning. For his first year he was barely given any food. They only gave him enough to survive, which basically meant that he was force-fed some of the foulest food ever given to a child, something his body couldn't even handle. With force beyond measure, they forced leftovers and sometimes even rotten food into his tiny body, hoping for him to be in immense pain at all times. In the first couple of months, most babies were plump with baby fat, having been fed well as they cried and cried for more of their favorite milk to be fed to them by their parents. But not Naruto. His body was gaunt and thin, almost starved to death. Even if he didn't starve, the food he ate nearly ensured his death even without the terrible feeding methods they performed on his tiny body. Children begin crawling when they're a couple of months old. Yet Naruto cannot even move his body, such was the terrible condition it was in. He could only roll over around a room, not even having the strength to crawl. His tiny room was dirty and filthy, the smell of blood and poop and piss hanging over the tiny room as maggots and flies surrounded his filthy, gaunt body. He never knew clothes, for they never bothered giving him any. The only reason he didn't die within the first week of his stay at the orphanage, ironically, was the presence of Kurumi within him. Kurumi, despite her terrible despair, quickly realized that she could sense the world outside through the seal on Naruto's navel, rendered invisible from Minato's excellent sealcraft. She could see what he saw, hear what he heard, and sense everything he experienced. A final gift from Minato and Kushina to her, something that made her smile sadly behind the massive bars that were her cage. Instead of sleeping like she usually did within Kushina and Mito, she decided to stay up. In tears, she made up her mind. She would teach him everything he needed to know about life, together with everything she learned of the ninja arts from all the cages she had ever interacted with. He would grow up strong with her as company, something she vowed to herself. The first thing she saw when Naruto's eyes were open was the orphanage storeroom's worn roof as she heard Naruto crying from hunger like a baby should. From Naruto's eyes she saw that the entire room wasn't even a proper bedroom, but a tiny storeroom. An earthen floor and gaping wooden walls met her sight everywhere Naruto turned his head. As her mind held questions about the terrible condition Naruto was in, she caught sight of the matron as she entered from a similarly terrible door, a mug of steaming hot milk within her hands. Even Kurumi's underdeveloped danger senses rang warning bells within her head as she saw the matron come closer to Naruto's body, her eyes almost glowing with hatred. Her mental alarms finally made sense as she held the mug over Naruto's head before her hand tilted it. Kurumi's eyes widened with fear as she saw, in slow motion, the white liquid fall on Naruto's tiny body. "No, what are you doing?" she screamed. Yet her cries went unheard, as Naruto's tiny figure was bathed in the hot liquid, the heat making him shriek even louder before he began choking, the hot milk keeping his throat from breathing properly, part of the milk entering his lungs, nearly drowning him. "No," she screamed in terror as she began manipulating her powers. Living within 2 cage-level ninjas taught her how to use her Yuki, demonic chakra, to heal them and boost their powers if they needed it. Yet due to their skills, she never needed to use it much. Immediately a wave of blood-red power exploded from her before it quickly moved like a sea of opaque crimson waters, flowing between the massive bars of the cage into the infinite darkness in front of her. She closed her eyes, guiding the power within Naruto's chakra system. Being a part of her, she could feel it wherever it went, whether outside or inside of Naruto. She hated her power. It always made her feel uneasy every time she used it, no matter with who or what for. The emotions her terrible power carried have always tried poisoning her mind with thoughts of death and destruction, something that she usually managed to hold back with the help of Mito. But what she hated most was the effect of the power. Its ability to manipulate and modify a biological structure was something that was too strong for anyone. It almost made her feel like a god. Yet she knew, it's either she uses her powers or Naruto will die. And for her eternal life, she will never choose the latter. As the matron turned around and cursed Naruto's existence, she failed to notice the slight sheen of red glowing underneath Naruto's skin as Kurumi's powers circulated throughout him, activating his chakra core, located at one's navel as she did so. Like tiny hands, her power spread through Naruto's body, letting her feel everything within him. Thanks to the medical knowledge taught to her by Hashirama to understand his medical ninjutsu, she had a good idea of how to help little Naruto. She knew that she cannot risk exposing the usage of her powers. The matron would immediately consider him a demon, and treat him worse than she already had. Not just that, ninja would swarm all over his location within seconds and immediately suspect the worst had happened. Naruto might be killed because of her actions. She needed to be extremely careful with her operations, and only using an extremely minute amount of power, only enough to heal him without causing it to radiate outwards. With her being a creature made of chakra, this came easily to her as breathing. Immediately her chakra made its way to his lungs, her senses registering the presence of milk within them. She went into action immediately, manipulating her powers towards the liquid. Her solution was as simple as brute force. She dismantled the liquid into materials usable to the body before quickly absorbing them into his blood. Within seconds her powers made short work of the milk, quickly breaking it down and absorbing it into his body. In the next couple of seconds, Naruto's lungs were cleared of the foreign material, every single drop of it absorbed into his body as Kurumi manipulated her powers elsewhere, healing his injured body. In less than a minute she finished, Naruto's tiny body healed as close to perfection as it could be. As she breathed out a sigh of relief, she recalled the time when Mito had her use her power on her body so that she could learn better about her corrosive, deadly power. She refused at first, worrying for her friend's safety, but Mito's insistence and Hashirama's safeguards meant that she could go wild within her body and still have no problems whatsoever with her. That event gave her knowledge of how to use her powers. She mentally glared at the matron even as she left. A feeling of absolute sadness struck her heart as she recalled her thoughts before the presence of the matron. I'm sorry, Naruto, she cried. It's all my fault. If I hadn't attacked Konoha, you wouldn't have to live like this. And she could tell from the matron's glare that it would only get worse. Don't worry, Naruto, she said as softly as her growling demonic voice allowed her to. I'll be with you all the time. I'll heal you if they hurt you and be with you when you're lonely. I'll always be with you. So please, don't think you're alone. She stood herself steady, becoming Naruto's sentinel and guard, his only companion within the cruel world he ended up in. And it will probably get worse, judging from the glare that woman sent at you. She could not even imagine how right she was. During the first couple of days she was absolutely, utterly horrified by how they treated the little child. Food was roughly stuffed into his mouth. Food that wasn't for babies. If not for her helping Naruto digest said food quickly, he would have choked to death. Rotten food not even suited for dogs was fed to him as they continued their inhuman torture. And only her timely healing attempts prevented him from dying. After the first couple of months, both her and Naruto's tears had dried completely, with Naruto having no water to cry out and Kurumi having already cried non-stop for a month. She killed the maggots that buried themselves within Naruto's filthy body, forcefully absorbing them to use as nutrients. She helped digest everything they fed Naruto no matter how rotten, poisonous, or filthy it was. Her powers flowed almost continuously through Naruto, preventing him from dying and both feeding and healing him. If not for Minato and Kushina loosening the seal on her new cage so much that she could use her powers, Naruto would have been dead on the first day of his life. And for that, she thanked the couple, lacking the tears to cry out in thanks. Her efforts gave rise to unprecedented side effects, however. The constant flow of corrosive and deadly Yuki through his body damaged and healed it again and again, making him tougher. His body could survive more punishment than he ever would have otherwise. The Uzumaki were always known as the clan of longevity, due to their strong life force and their powerful chakra. Yet Naruto's forced enhancements overshadowed even the rest of his kin. By the end of his first year, Naruto, despite the malnourishment and frailness of his body, was living on, albeit most of his injuries were patched with nothing but Yuki. Yuki powered every one of his cells, preventing them from dying. He survived the perilous weather of the elemental nations on nothing but a diet of Yuki and fallen raindrops and snow. Every single thing that could be done to help him was done by Kurumi, all to redeem herself and let her charge live to see the next day. Her skill level with her powers skyrocketed as Naruto's tiny body became her experimental bed, analyzing every single thing about him to ensure that he didn't die a horrible death from their inhuman treatment. And in the process of healing Naruto, she learned about humans. How their body works, what manner of chemical reactions took place, and its reaction to the myriad of things he was fed with. She knew more about the human body than even the best of medic scholars from Naruto. Only Kurumi's extreme restraint against her massive amount of power prevented every single ninja in Konoha from being alerted to her actions, a feat akin to holding back an entire ocean with a tablespoon. And he grew up despite their cruelty, a sickly, skinny, one-year-old boy. Enraged with his growth despite everything she put the demon child through, the matron began a new form of torture. She began hitting Naruto's body physically, tears falling down from her eyes every time as she recalled her son, how he was crushed underneath his own home. Memories from their times together replaying in her mind, giving rise to despair and rage within her. Every time her hands hit his body, she pictured her child. Her beloved child, the one she carried for months within her. The child that grew up to be a good person, never wronging anyone. The child that gave her 3 cute grandchildren. They all perished, her mind constantly picturing the massive debris that crushed them all, silencing them completely. In the face of such an imagined pain, she believed with all her heart that the relatively benign punishments she did were nothing but an annoyance to the demon in human form. Other kids learned how to walk and to speak their baby tongue at a year old. At a year's age, Naruto learned nothing at all. His throat was torn so many times from crying himself sore that he would have lost his ability to speak if not for Kurumi, who healed him continuously, supporting his body with nothing but Yuki and the scraps of food they tossed to him. And every time she cried of Naruto's horrifying life, she wondered, where had the Sandaime gone? Where did the old man, so gentle and friendly, the student of Mito's late husband, go? Does he not know of any of this? The life he inflicted on Naruto? Unbeknownst to her, the Sandaime was too busy to visit. Every waking moment was spent trying to patch up the destruction caused by her attack. There were men to replace, missions to conduct and people to meet. Every part of him was busy trying to shore up their defenses and their reputation. Konoha couldn't be seen as weak, no matter how, for that would invite an even worse fate unto them. Every day he strove to strengthen Konoha, letting everyone know that they are not a village to be trifled with. There was nothing that he loved more than his village. A year passed with Naruto being tormented by the matron. Naruto had nothing to cry about anymore, with his mouth unable to mutter even the most basic of words. Only gurgles akin to someone on death's door came out. The matron's cold eyes ignored the immense pain the little baby went through from her treatment, only vengeance and pain in her heart. And during this time, he finally met his guardian demon within. Break. Naruto's eyes fluttered open, having gone dark mere moments ago. The last thing he heard before his eyes went dark was a loud crack that echoed within the small room that was his torture chamber before his mind shut down on itself. Slowly his eyes opened, revealing to him a strange world unlike anything he ever saw before. Infinite darkness stretched out in front of him, revealing nothing. Faint light shone behind him, coming from a series of tiny, flickering torches mounted on the massive walls of a tunnel. His body was lying in a shallow layer of water that smelled like him, the darkness preventing him from correctly observing the color of the waters. Yet he could hear the sound of something splashing on the fetid and smelly waters close by. Slowly, as his eyes got used to the encompassing darkness of his surroundings, he could finally see around him. Or rather, what was directly in front of him. Right in front of him stood a gigantic gate, its massive golden bars reaching high into the infinite darkness above him. The gates were bound in a single spot, a massive flat bar in contrast to the cylindrical ones beside it, with a simple paper talisman with the kanji for seal on it holding the gate from opening. Naruto had no strength left to move his body as the splashes grew stronger, nor did he make a sound, knowing that any sound he did would only be construed as a reason to thrash him harder. He weakly looked towards where the patter of steps on the viscous water came from, and slowly, the source of the sound revealed itself. A gigantic animal towered over Naruto's tiny figure, its blood-red color painting a menacing look. It was so large that Naruto's tiny mind couldn't even comprehend the sheer size of the being. Yet he could only look with minimal reaction, his horror muted from all that he had been through. Slowly he groaned, unable to properly talk. Grrrgh. Naruto. The massive animal shouted to him. The water behind the bars splashed noisily as the sound of something falling on its surface echoed within the massive sewer. "Thank the gods you're safe," the animal yelled, fear and gratefulness in equal measure in its voice. "She broke your ribs just now. I managed to hold you together long enough to heal you. You're lucky you have me in you," she teased, though sadness and pain colored her words. Naruto just looked at this massive animal blankly, nothing running through his mind. How could he understand what was going on? He never was capable of any conscious thought. His day consisted of nothing but pain. How was he supposed to feel surprised at this? His first thought was that this thing was out for him. His inner spirit is utterly crushed by this point. It only hurts more if he resists. Since he did nothing then, he did the same now. Kurumi's blood-red eyes looked down towards the tiny figure on the wet floor, her tears falling into the sewers again, the droplets glittering with the flickering lights of the torches on the walls before splashing on the surface of the waters, disappearing into the terrible waters. How could they be so cruel to this child? Didn't they know about his heritage? He was their greatest hero, yet they treated him like trash. Kurumi immediately decided to start the next part of her previous promise. Now that she had him with her, she would begin to teach him in addition to keeping him alive. Slowly her tail snaked through the massive bars, and once again she thanked Minato for his decision to weaken the seal for her to interact with Naruto more easily. The seal's weakness was probably the reason Naruto ended up in here, the massive trauma from the near-lethal damage sending him straight into a coma even with her recovery effort. If not for the change, she would not be able to even come close to the bars. She nearly cried once more when Naruto's spread eagle body slightly flinched as her fluffy white-tipped tail came closer to his prone body, his reaction causing tiny waves to ripple from his place on the floor. Naruto just looked at the massive tail coming at him, something different this time instead of the usual torment. A moment passed, but instead of bone-crunching pain, he felt something soft surround him. Something soft, warm, and gentle, it tenderly caressed his tiny body. Yet he still twitched in fear and imaginary pain as thousands of tiny furs began covering him, keeping him warm within the cold surroundings of this strange place he ended up in. With a single soft tug he felt his body rise, being lifted from the fetid waters by the same thing that warmed him. Slowly, gradually, he could feel his body going higher and higher. Yet unlike the time with the matron, this feeling was different. Calmer, more affectionate, and warmer, something he'd never felt before. The heat spread throughout his tiny form, slowly calming down the nervous twitches in his body, a natural reaction after such a terrible life. Higher and higher it brought him, up until he reached the animal's head. And there Naruto saw this massive thing that was with him. The thing's head was fox-like, yet a pair of long, rabbit-like ears was on its head. Tearful crimson eyes met dead blue ones as Kurumi stared into Naruto's own eyes. She did nothing else, just wrapping Naruto with a cocoon made of her tail, staring straight into Naruto's eyes at all times, never once breaking eye contact with him as she felt his tiny body within her tail. "Naruto," she began, "I know you don't understand me. And I don't think you know your name yet. But I am here with you. I will teach you everything. I will always be with you. No matter what happens, I am here, Naruto. You can come here anytime. If they are hitting you, you can stay here. I'll make sure you'll be fine." Naruto just looked at her, not having anything to say to her. Kurumi let loose a slow sigh at this. She needed to start with the most basic of lessons, his name. Kurumi lifted her obsidian black claw and pointed towards the tiny baby in her tail. "Naruto. Naruto," she slowly said, trying to get him to learn his own name. Naruto said nothing. Undeterred, she repeated her words. Again and again she voiced his name. She had nothing but time in here, and she knew that. Time and time again she repeated herself. Finally, she saw some reaction from Naruto after a long while of attempting to communicate with him. His lips parted and trembled slightly, so small it was almost invisible. Yet Kurumi's heart rose as her eyes widened, her happiness at Naruto's attempt to copy her clearly apparent. "Good, Naruto. Good." Again. Once again she continued her attempts, trying her hardest to get him to speak, no matter how little. She inexhaustibly continued, again and again, pointing towards her tiny charge repeatedly, trying to make him learn his own name. She had infinite patience as she did so, rewarding his every small attempt with a slow caress of her warm tail, something that Naruto found gentle and calming every time. "Oh!" came Naruto's weak groan, his small voice sounding infinitely large to Kurumi within the empty, dank space. Her face lighting up like 1,000 light bulbs just flashed to life underneath her skin. "Good, good, Naruto." She wept happily. "Keep it up. Once more," she cried, tears of happiness falling down from her face, small flicks of her tail caressing Naruto's tiny body. He understood not why, but he felt safe and calm in her grasp. Again and again he tried copying her, his rarely used vocal cords doing their best to copy this nice being speech. And so began a relationship between the two, a human and a demon, a jailer and its prisoner, in a world hidden to all. A loud whack echoed within the tiny room as a thin bamboo stick struck Naruto's tiny, emaciated figure, waking him up from his best dream ever. His body barely had the strength to move itself as the tiny rod whipped his body. "Wake up, demon," came the voice of the matron, waking him up. Naruto could only roll weakly in response. The matron watched the worn boy without a shred of mercy in her heart, only contempt. Her other hand moved, spilling the plate of moldy rice she was carrying on him. The stench of the spoiled rice hovered within the filthy room, further adding to the noxious smell coming from the room. Yet the matron was not bothered by the foul odor, knowing that her insatiable anger was more important than her own comfort, and even more so when he could avenge her child's pain from this beast. "You're not worthy of food, demon," she hissed before she quickly turned around, the wooden door slamming behind her disappearing figure. Within his mindscape, Kurumi watched the disappearing of the matron, and she went to work immediately. Her power once again flooded within Naruto's tiny body, a slight glow emitting underneath his skin as she did so. Microscopic tendrils of Yuki reached towards the foul food that came to contact with Naruto's skin. It immediately went to work, dissolving the vile food and killing the bacteria on it before being absorbed into Naruto through his skin, the only way for him to receive his nutrition now. As she helped digest the rotten food for Naruto, she spread herself, her power reaching towards Naruto's skin, quickly healing his hurt body. Her powers made short work of the small wounds, mending them within seconds. It does not take long before Naruto's body recovered completely, and only his consciousness need to return to his body. Kurumi watched Naruto's prone figure in his mindscape through the massive bars of her cage, observing any sign of his return back to the realm of the conscious. His small chest barely moved as he took in the air around him, the filthy waters lapping on his body making small splashing noises within the dimly lit mindscape. Minutes passed, yet Naruto didn't move a single muscle, still lying where he was on the waters. Kurumi's worry began to grow as she saw his lack of movement. "Naruto?" she asked slowly, trying to call him back to wakefulness. "Naruto, are you awake?" she whispered again, hoping to all gods above that he would survive. Worried, a tail of hers slipped between the massive bars, slowly reaching towards his prone body. Slowly her fluffy tail reached Naruto. In a single move her tail swept him up on it before she carried him slowly towards her cage, straight towards her face. She brought her snout closer towards him before taking a deep whiff of him. Still alive, came the result of her analysis. Her tongue stretched towards him, licking him, while taking extreme care not to send him flying from her massive tongue. "Naruto, wake up," she whispered within his ears, trying to rouse him up. Slowly but surely, she saw that she was having an effect on him. His body lightly stirred, the muscles of his arm twitched to wakefulness. In moments his eyelids fluttered, showing that he was awake. Unable to move, he just gurgled lightly on his spot on Kurumi's tail. "Ugr. Shish, Naruto, don't say anything," she spoke before she stretched a second tail towards him. The unnaturally flexible tail stretched on him before she began stroking him lightly, warming his mental image. Yet only in here, within the relative safety of his mind, did Naruto felt safe for the first time in his life. And buoyed by Kurumi's gentle ministrations he slept, his body enjoying the warmth and feel she brought him. Kurumi smiled at this sight. This is what a child should do, sleeping calmly within someone's gentle hold, not having to survive through a terrible life day in and day out. She continued her actions, slowly stroking Naruto's body like he's a cat, making sure that he had a good sleep, even if it's just in his mind. "Sleep, Naruto," she slowly spoke with a sad smile on her face, tears pooling within her massive eyes. "Sleep and heal." And Naruto, not understanding her words, kept on sleeping, as befitting that of a toddler. Break. The matron walked through the corridors of her orphanage, her mind still thinking towards the demon. Her mind was filled with anger and sadness, as she once again recalled the sight of her only son, found underneath the rubble of his home. Only the fact that the orphanage was located far away from the rampaging demon saved her life. And she still felt its terrible power. And now, she was avenging her son, to let the demon feel the same pain he would have felt where he was. "Mom?" The voice of a little girl snapped her out of her bitter thoughts. Immediately her eyes snapped towards the source of the voice. A girl, wearing worn clothes 2 sizes too big for her, stood in front of the matron, hugging the teddy bear she was holding tight. The matron's rage evaporated at the sight of one of her charge, her eyes still slightly bleary from being awoken quite early. She kneeled down, putting the best smile she had on her face. "Hello, Mion," she said happily, putting a hand on the little girl's shoulder. "You just woke up?" "Uh-huh," she replied with a nod of her head. "Everyone's still sleeping. I'll wake them up," she replied with a smile. But as she stood to wake the kids, she was stopped by a small tug at her trousers, causing her to look at the little girl, now named Mion, once more. "What is it, Mom?" she began, but quickly stopped as her face turned sideways, avoiding her stepmother's loving gaze. "What is it, Mion?" She kneeled again, one hand on her shoulder as the other patted her tiny head. "Just say it, Mion," came her gentle words. "You know I won't get angry with you." "But, you're angry just now," she slowly said. "You're never angry." "Am I?" she replied with a smile, yet her mind immediately began spinning in turmoil from what the little girl said. But she managed to find a good reply to her own question. "I am, but I'm not angry at you," she said, slowly rubbing her head. "I'm angry at someone else." "At who?" She remained silent, thinking of an answer to her disarming question. "It's not at you, which is what matters," she replied, once again patting her head gently. "But don't come at the back of the house," she advised, her hand pointing towards the back of the orphanage building. "A demon lives there, and I'm holding it back." "A demon?" "Yes," she nodded. "It's very evil, and if you come close to it, it might poison your mind. So don't come near." "Okay," the little girl replied with a smile. She knew that demons are bad, and you shouldn't play around with it or close to it. "I'll tell the others as well." "Please do," The matron replied with a nod of her head as she watched the little girl skip away towards her fellow orphans, her figure following right behind her. Before she left, she shot one last glare towards Naruto's cage. "I will protect the kids from you, demon," she whispered. "You will not harm them. Not when I'm still breathing." Her footsteps immediately quickened as she attempted to catch up to her speedy charge. "Mion, wait for me," she called out towards the girl, watching her disappear to the upper floors of the orphanage. Break. A long time, at least to the accelerated time within one's mindscape, passed by before Naruto woke up. His eyes weakly looked sideways, meeting Kurumi's massive eyes, each larger than he was. "Good morning, Naruto," she spoke, a smile on her vulpine face as she continued her gentle caresses of Naruto's battered body. Naruto heard her soft voice calling out his name, and just for the second time in his short life, he felt truly safe, that no one could harm him. His eyes quickly opened, showing energy forcefully hidden from the world in his bright blue eyes. And within those eyes, a feeling of happiness shone within them. He cooed slowly, enjoying her gentle ministrations once more, something he always loved. Kurumi smiled again. His face, despite the bad life he was in, was calm and relaxed when she was with her, something that soothed her pained heart. "I caused this life to you, Naruto. Let me help you." Naruto said nothing. "Let's begin your tutorial for today, shall we? Your name first." Once again, she pointed her claw to Naruto. "Nah." Naruto heard her voice and remembered yesterday's session. He knew not what she said, but he instinctively knew what to do. He just needed to imitate her words as best as he can. His lips trembled as he tried to speak a part of his name again. Yet as he did, nothing came out from his mouth but a small growl, sounding more like a nasal dog's bark than anything. Yet he endured, pushing ahead. Again and again he attempted to speak his name as Kurumi slowly taught him, her patience boundless in teaching Naruto his name, even if it's just a small part of it. Hours seemed to pass as she slowly taught him how to speak. Finally, her patience was rewarded. "Nah," he spoke finally, a cheerful glow within his eyes as he stared straight into Kurumi's eyes. Her eyes widened as she heard his small voice. "Good," she happily cheered for the little boy. "Now continue." "Ru," she quickly spoke, continuing her teaching. Her eyes cried tears of happiness as Naruto smiled as he followed her words, doing his best to copy her. A huge smile on her face shone with her happiness as she tirelessly taught Naruto his words. And within the time dilation the mindscape offered, Naruto finally managed to say his own name. Immediately Kurumi started teaching Naruto how to speak her name next. And it does not take long as Naruto managed to learn her name next. Within the real world, the sun stood high on the sky as afternoon dawned on the elemental nations, the bright, warm light shining on Naruto's tiny body. And unseen by anyone, Naruto's lips trembled and moved, saying his and his guardian's name in a small, unheard breath, a slight smile appearing on his lips. Break. Bolstered by the success of her early teaching attempts, she began teaching Naruto more and more words, their names for starters. It is nearly impossible, seeing as how he was barely 2 years old, but never let it be said that Kurumi was not patient. She knew that this would only be the start. He at least needed to know how the words sound before she can teach him, though she might need a while before Naruto can grow enough to properly speak. The matron appeared once in a while, interrupting the moment between them as she fed Naruto her variant of food. Always thankful to moments like this, she immediately went to work, quickly digesting what foul manner of food the matron gave Naruto immediately. At the very least, he still survives, and that's most important. Whenever the matron began hitting Naruto, she never faltered, healing him back as best as she could with her powers, making sure every part of him remained intact after her beatings. At the very least, she was very thankful that there was no other terrible injury that Naruto sustained other than the one that sent him towards his mindscape immediately. And as time goes on, Naruto began looking forward to the times when he would end up in front of Kurumi. The malnourished, injured boy always liked the look and feel of Kurumi, because he knew that she was the only one that would treat him well. He loved the slow strokes of her soft tail, not to mention the fact that she spoke with him kindly, something that he really liked. He began regaining his spirit now, and even the matron's foul food and beatings won't be enough to remove the life he had now. Naruto reached her cage so often that he could almost reach her cage at will, appearing every time after the matron left. He quickly associated the matron with bad person, and always cowered every time she appeared. Kurumi immediately comforted him every time he appeared in front of her, gently embracing his mental representation with her soft fur, letting him calm down and sleep happily, his only sanctuary within the cruel world he ended up in. After another while, Kurumi added another course to her teaching. A simple, yet very necessary thing: how to walk. Break. Once again Naruto appeared in front of her cage after another feeding session from the matron. Kurumi's tail snaked towards him as usual, immediately eliciting a smile on his face and a cheer on his lips. But unknown to him, today was very different. Instead of coiling around his body like they regularly do, the tails wrapped around his arms this time. Naruto, Kurumi began explaining to him the current goal of his exercise. I need you to stand up and learn how to walk. This is a very important skill for your entire life. This will hurt a little, but it's necessary. Her eyes quickly squinted shut as her heart clenched in pain. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Naruto looked at her in confusion. She never did this. What was she planning? Umi? He questioned slightly, not comprehending her actions. A slow pull caught his attention towards his tiny arms before his eyes quickly saw Kurumi's tails wrapping around his arms. Slowly the tails pulled upwards, lifting his arms towards the dark roof of his mindscape. Umi. Naruto slowly groaned as he looked straight towards Kurumi, a look of betrayal in his face as his body was slowly pulled by the arms, lifting his body off the surface of the water, the liquid dripping down, the tiny splashes echoing within the massive chambers. His body was forcefully lifted off the water's surface as he bent from his waist, using the muscles that he never used before. Pain shot through his body from his shoulders, his battered body not able to withstand the pulling Kurumi did despite his light weight. Umi, he cried out, tears of pain flowing from his eyes, not expecting this betrayal of his best friend. I'm sorry, Naruto, Kurumi apologized again, understanding the massive pain he was in. But this is necessary. You must live, and you need to walk if you are to do so. Holding back her tears behind a weak facade, she tugged his arms once more. Slowly his behind left the water's surface, his unused legs dangling from his body as tears began flowing once more from his eyes. After a long, agonizing minute to Kurumi, she finally lifted Naruto's body straight. Immediately she lowered him down, letting his bare feet touch the waters. Alright Naruto, she spoke. Try to support your weight with your legs. A painful grimace was stuck on his face as his legs trembled, his straining arms taking his entire weight. Kurumi slowly lowered him, letting him put his body weight on his two legs. Yet his atrophied legs immediately lost its hold on the waters, causing him to slip. Naruto! Kurumi shrieked out, and in a knee-jerk reaction her tails tugged hard, pulling Naruto's already painful arms taut. Umi! Came Naruto's painful shriek, a heart-wrenching sound within the silent corridors. I'm sorry, she quickly cried in response before she brought him down again. I'm sorry. But you need this. Try to stand, Naruto. You can do it. Despite his tears, Naruto's foot quickly found purchase on the slippery waters with Kurumi repeating the same process. A tail of hers went towards Naruto's head. Pain shot through her heart as she saw how the struggling Naruto flinched as her tail came closer, nearly brought her to tears. The tail gently caressed the tiny boy's tuft of dirty golden blonde head, trying to calm him down from his struggle. Naruto's grimacing face slowly calmed down as Kurumi's tails caressed him gently, steadying him down. Despite the pain present, his feet slowly gained a hold on the waters. Gently Kurumi slackened her hold, letting his feet hold his weight. She saw how his feet wobbled and shook as they tried to support Naruto's body, with his concentration now diverted towards his legs instead of the pain in his arms as he felt this new sensation in his legs. Through her tails she felt Naruto's body steadying, having balanced himself on his legs. Slowly her tails let go of Naruto's tiny arms, letting his full weight be supported only by his trembling legs, though her tails hovered close to Naruto in case he fell. And now, she thought, everything is left to his own effort. For his part, Naruto stood shakily on his own legs, having never stood before. His arms instinctively spread wide beside him as he steadied himself, not wanting to faceplant into the water below. A smile slowly spread on his face as he felt his body on his two legs. The feeling spread quickly through his body, in euphoria unlike any other as he stood shakily on his own legs. But weakness quickly overcame his joints before his legs lost their strength and folded, sending him straight towards the waters. Or he would be if not for Kurumi quickly catching his body with her tails, already expecting such an outcome as her tails immediately wrapped around Naruto, stopping his fall as she sighed in relief. "Don't worry, Naruto," she said. "You won't be able to walk properly right now. Try it slowly, then we can go faster," she spoke to Naruto. Yet even from her position, she could feel Naruto's strength as he slowly tugged her tails. His eyes burned with determination as his legs kicked the air hard, his mouth yelling his guardian's name. "Umi." Kurumi's eyes widened as she saw Naruto's stubbornness before her eyes softened. "Kushina. Minato. Your spirits live on in Naruto. He's every bit as stubborn as you were, Kushina, and every bit as smart as Minato was," she spoke slowly. "Watch over us from where you are." Slowly she lowered the kicking Naruto on the water again, letting his legs slowly support his weight. But as soon as Kurumi released him he immediately fell on the water. "Naruto," she yelled, not fast enough to catch him. Yet Naruto weakly pushed his body up from the water's surface, his arms trembling from the exertion. Despite his weak body and lack of strength, it doesn't stop him from trying his hardest to stand up with his own strength, not a single tear falling from his face as he did so. He managed to push himself to a sitting position, legs on the surface of the water as his hands supported his body, trying to stand. Slowly he moved a leg forward, trying to kneel on the water. With a loud splash his foot stomped the surface of the water. Slowly the leg strained as Naruto pushed himself up. Slowly, steadily his trembling body rose. Higher and higher until his other leg snapped ahead, quickly pushing his body upwards in a burst of speed. Happiness spread through his face as he stood on his own power, his body straight and his arms wide as he turned around and faced Kurumi, a massive smile on his face brightening the dark room with its brilliance. "Umi," he yelled in his tiny voice. Kurumi chuckled as her tails wiped the tears at the corner of her eyes. "What an energetic boy you are, Naruto," she said slowly. "Nothing can keep you down, it seems." With a smile on her own face she continued their tutorial. "All right, Naruto, now it's time for you to walk slowly. Put a foot forward slowly, and I'll guide you," she spoke, continuing their lesson for the day with Naruto cheerfully following her orders. Break. Sarutobi Hiruzen was the third Hokage, the much vaunted Sandaime, one of the oldest ninjas in existence, said to have been the master of every non-bloodline jutsu within Konoha. He was a master fighter with unparalleled skill and experience, having been in all three of the previous shinobi world wars. His name was feared and respected at the same time, his 2 terms as Hokage showing just how much his people believed in him. And yet, with all his skill and experience, he never had an answer to his mortal enemy, the one enemy that he absolutely cannot defeat no matter what or how. It came in like a wrecking ball, unstoppable, unrelenting, without mercy, without remorse. Nothing he could do would ever stop this one enemy, the strongest of any he'd fought in his long history. Paperwork. Huge stacks of paper piled in front of him on his table, reports from every single component of the massive machine that was Konoha. Every day reports streamed in from the various parts of Konoha. Requisition requests from his Anbu, requesting new equipment to replace their worn-out gear. Production reports from the military smiths, the result of the day's production. Mission reports from his ninjas, telling the results and occurrences within the missions they were assigned to. The civilian councils report on their daily activities and meetings. He would read everything before giving the report his Hokage's stamp of acknowledgement, and an approved, or rejected, result for the requests. Giving out a tired sigh he stood up from his chair, stretching his old body. Sure, the chair is comfortable, but for someone that had sat in the same chair for hours on end, it still gave kinks on his old bones. His hand reached to his drawer, pulling out his usual favorite, his ornate wooden pipe, something he loved so very much. As he'd done many times before, he stuffed the pipe with his favorite scented tobacco before lighting it up, letting the sweet smoke waft within the room before he turned around towards the windows behind him, giving him a very nice view of the village he loved. The sun was setting from the sky, bathing the entire village in a beautiful golden hue, a scenic scene that only looked better the higher he was. Another puff of smoke came from his lips as he saw the ninja under his command leap from roof to roof, heading to their destination, something that reminded him of the current situation of his village. Due to Kurumi's attack, manpower was at an all-time low within Konoha. Immediately after her attack, Sarutobi ordered every ninja in retirement or rest to be deployed, replacing those who died. These include those in standby or those whose duty involved patrolling Konoha. Among those in charge of said duty were members of the Konoha Military Police. The Konoha Military Police was an organization whose main task was to keep peace within Konoha, resolving any crimes perpetrated by its people, be they ninja or civilian. Their members were the Uchiha clan, having been given full authority over the organization as a part of their deal during the formation of Konoha by the Shodai Hokage, as was their clan's right. Being the clan with the least casualties during Kurumi's attack, the men of the Konoha Military Police were taken from their duty to be absorbed into the main force to shore up their faltering manpower. This, combined with the Anbu missions he was forced to assign to his men, made their internal protection weaken, with less men patrolling the insides of Konoha. This would have weakened other villages from within, but Konoha had contingencies against such an event. A massive detection barrier made of seals, commanded by the Konoha Barrier Division, allowed them to detect any infiltrators coming through the walls or from the sky in the form of a massive chakra barrier around the village through the village's walls. His student Jiraiya's counterintelligence operations outside of Konoha also helped spread false information to the other villages, allowing them to look strong despite the attack of a Biju. The walls of Konoha, made by the Shodai with his Mokuton, were very tough walls that were alive, allowing them to heal themselves just by absorbing nutrients from the earth, a feat no one else could copy. He sighed out, blowing a cloud of smoke from his wrinkled lips. The lack of manpower also made him unable to assign guards to Naruto, and Kurumi's attack damaged the special crystal ball that he once used to monitor any part of Konoha, preventing him from knowing his current situation. Yet in his mind, he knew that Naruto would live just fine. The matron that took him in was a kind soul, and she will take care of him just fine, he reasoned with a small smile. How much would it hurt him when he found out how mistaken his trust was? His short break was interrupted by a small voice behind him, causing him to turn around and look towards this person interrupting his small break, only to meet the Anbu agent Dog, standing still with his mask on in the usual Anbu garbs, the skin-tight black shirt with a flak jacket covering it and a short tanto behind him tied at his waist. "Hokage-sama," he spoke softly, his voice muffled and distorted from the mask. "Dog," the Sandame replied. "Report. Mission successful," he answered steadily. "Spying mission to Lightning Country successful." He took a scroll from within the weapons pouch at his back. "This is my mission report together with the intel I gathered." He slowly placed the scroll on his table, making sure not to touch the towering stacks of paper. Only God knows what would happen if he were to cause the fall of the towering stacks of paperwork. "Good," he said as he sat down, his pipe in his hand. "For your completion of this long-term mission, you'll be retired from Anbu." "No," Kakashi quickly rejected. "What? Let me be in service to the Anbu, Hokage-sama," he quickly spoke. "Kakashi, you've been in service for so long," Hiruzen spoke, trying to comfort the Anbu. "Most only stayed in service for a short while. You are one of my most valuable men, Kakashi. Putting you in service for too long risks your psychological health." "Hokage-sama," he began. "This place, it's still too painful for me," he spoke. "I'll need some more time before I can be of full service to it. My loyalty is with Konoha forever, my lord, but it pains me to be here right now." Hiruzen sighed. "All right, one more long-term mission, and you will be retired and return to the rank of Junin to Konoha." "I cannot ask for more, Hokage-sama," Dog spoke with a bow. Hiruzen stood up and grabbed a single paper among the massive pile on his table. "Here's a mission for you," he said as he passed the paper to Dog. "To guard the daughter of the daimyo of Snow Country, Koyuki Kazuhana." The daimyo himself requested this mission. "This is an S-rank mission and will take you 3 years. I will require reports every month from you. You'll have a week of rest before going on this mission. Your will be done, Hokage-sama." Kakashi spoke with a bow before disappearing in a swirl of floating leaves, a small whoosh blowing through the room as he did so. Sarutobi sighed as he sat down, his mind pondering the boy he just met with. He really loved his teacher. His elbow touched one of the piles of paperwork on his desk accidentally, making them wobble dangerously as he looked at it in fear, his face paling as he saw this terrifying sight. "Thank you for reminding me of this massive amount of work," he sighed loudly before he picked up his pen and the closest document to him before his aged eyes began reading the document. A Hokage's work was never done, it seems. Break. In a short while, Naruto had already learned to walk thanks to Kurumi's teachings. During nighttime, when the orphanage was asleep, he woke up from his training session and slowly walked around his cage, being urged by Kurumi's voice echoing in his head. He may not be able to understand her as of yet, but he knew what she wanted him to do. Every morning he quickly stopped his walks, lying down in his usual pose, on the ground with his cheerful smile hidden from them. Seeing how receptive Naruto was towards her teaching, she began having him do exercises to strengthen his body and train his muscles, making sure they were strong enough for everything he needed in the future. Just like how she taught him how to walk, she wrapped her tails around his limbs and guided him to move them in ways he never knew. And after her tutorial on walking, he knew better now, instinctively following the movements she moved his body through before performing the same movements during the night in silence. He continued the same routine for months, silently building up his body and strengthening it, using his 5 senses, enhanced from Kurumi's presence within him, to ensure that no one was up and around as he trained his body, only stopping when the morning came. It does not take long before Naruto's energetic nature shone as he silently but quickly tiptoed within his tiny room, a bright smile on his face as he moved his body. Unbeknownst to him, almost everything in his body was supported by Yuki. His cells and organs, having been repeatedly damaged by the beatings he went through, were only held together by Kurumi's Yuki and prayers. Even his growth was nothing more than her Yuki building him up. It miraculously worked, possibly due to the same reason her father considered her powers the most special amongst her siblings. And it all finally came to a head, one stormy day. It was a dark and stormy night, one that perfectly mirrored the emotions and thoughts running within the aged matron as she sat at the windowsill of the orphanage's kitchen. Her eyes stared a mighty distance outside the open window, the slight raindrops falling on her not bothering her. A small saucer was visible in her hand. The smell of alcohol hung heavy within the kitchen, a sign that she had been drinking. If light was present, one could see that she had a dark blush on her aged cheeks, a sure sign that she was drunk. She looked at the dark, cloudy sky, the heavy rain around her acting as soothing music to her troubled heart. Tonight was a special day for her. Tonight was the night of her son's birthday. Before, her son would take her out for some dinner at a fancy restaurant somewhere within Konoha, where he would always invite her to stay at his home and to leave the orphanage to those younger. And as always, she would reject him, and told him that taking care of orphans were her calling. And as usual, he'll sigh, telling her how much of a stubborn old goat she was. And she would just smile, knowing that he meant no insult in those words. But not this year, or the year before. This year, she was alone in the orphanage, with no one around to talk to. No one called her out today for a good meal. Only her, and the nearly empty bottle of sake she had in her hand, the finest from Rice Country. She poured another saucer full of the spirit, and quickly dunked it, feeling the burn the alcohol did as it passed through her throat. Why'd I have to care for that demon? She slurred, her mind thinking towards the demon within her orphanage. It should just die, she hiccuped, her voice drowned within the heavy rain that fell on her roof. It killed my Sean. Within her drunk mind, she thought back of the demon in human form she cared for. Why didn't it die? She questioned herself. I gave it lodge. She fed it some of the foulest thing she had, and even beaten the tiny demon. Yet it still lived, almost as if her actions had no effect. It should die. As time passed, the thought of just killing the demon grew even more appealing to her. She stumbled away from the windowsill, one hand still clutching the ceramic bottle of sake with the other holding the saucer. She wobbled towards the back door of the kitchen before kicking it hard. The door swung open at the same instant. Thunder flashed on the sky, the intense boom of it becoming the background music to her actions. With another loud kick, she smashed the door to Naruto's little torture chamber, the heavy rain following her entry into the small room. Naruto was tottering on his tiny legs, trying his best to practice walking within the small room in secret. Kurumi should be able to detect the thick smell of liquor and her loud movements, Yet the torrential rain and Naruto's valiant and successful effort at trying to walk deadened Naruto's, and consequently her, senses. And they were caught completely unaware as the matron smashed through the door, revealing her drunk, soaking wet figure to the surprised Naruto, who immediately met her stare with his own baby eyes. She strode within the shack, slow and wobbly yet purposeful. Naruto could only stand rooted where he was, not able to react to the presence of the bad person within his small shack. "You," she slurred as she saw Naruto's standing figure. And in the blink of an eye, her hand swung downwards. The massive bottle of sake smashed on little Naruto's head, breaking it into 1,000 pieces as the force of the blow sent Naruto to the ground, a loud cry of pain escaping his lips. His scalp was torn from the powerful blow, his blood flowing within the tiny room as he slumped on the ground wordlessly. "No!" Kurumi screamed from within as she saw the drunk matron smash the huge bottle on Naruto's face. Needing no further prompting, her powers explode from her into Naruto's system as she quickly began fixing Naruto's immense injuries. "Demon!" she screamed at the top of her lungs as another bolt of thunder erupted at the sky, shining on her maniacal face. Quickly she swung her leg, kicking the tiny boy into the wooden wall of the shack, his back nearly tore open from her kick. "Bring me back my son." Again and again she stomped on Naruto's body, nothing in her mind but to hurt the demon as bad as she can. "Stop, please stop," Kurumi pleaded within him, her tears flowing into the muck that was Naruto's mindscape. "Please someone, stop her." Yet her pleading went unnoticed within the massive thunderstorm. Even as she pleaded, she does not sit idle, her powers already circulating within Naruto's chakra coil to heal him. Broken ribs, torn muscles, ruptured organs. She whispered to herself as her powers diagnosed the condition of Naruto's body on the fly, forcing her to immediately apply her power towards the areas needing critical attention. "Please, someone, stop her," she begged still, her tears falling non-stop from the terrible pain Naruto went through. The matron continued her beating, oblivious to her pleading cries. Again and again she stomped on Naruto's broken body, tears of anguish pouring from her eyes. "Jibe me back my Shan. Give him back to me," she howled, her drunkenness further fueling her madness. Another kick landed on Naruto's tiny body, once again sending him flying towards the wall, the sound of his body hitting the wall muffled by the raging storm outside the hut. "He won't come back," she screamed futilely within Naruto, her tears falling without any sign of slowing down even as she labored hard to restore Naruto's body. "Even if you kill Naruto, your son won't come back." Her pleading cries echo within the dark expanse of Naruto's mindscape, known only to her. "It's my fault. It's my fault. Don't drag Naruto into this. Punish me, not him." She finally stopped her cruel beating and took a step back on the drenched ground, panting hard from the exertion. She looked at her resulting carnage with a certain satisfaction to her. At the other edge of the room lay Naruto's broken, battered body, his blood spattered across the wet room from her terrible beating. The baby lay unmoving, not a shred of consciousness within him. The matron's tears still flowed as she left Naruto's dead body where he was. She quickly turned around before she spat on Naruto's body, a final act of cruelty on his fragile body before she finally left, the wooden door slamming behind her. Kurumi never stopped healing even as she glared at the matron from within Naruto. Her powers circulated around Naruto's chakra coils, reaching towards every part of his battered body. "Hang on, Naruto. I'll save you." She need not say it, for her powers had already circulated within his body, stimulating and mending the injuries together, making sure that everything within his body was properly patched together. But there's something strange, something that confused her. Usually, her power flowed smoothly within his chakra system, ensuring that she could heal him no matter the injury. Unlike before though, the flow felt sluggish and slow, almost as if there's a resistance that prevented it from moving. She pondered this issue for a while even as she compensated for the dammed flow, guiding what remains of her power. She barely had the time to think about the mysterious issue with the chakra flow when Naruto's prone body suddenly jerked as taut as a drawn bowstring. His entire body convulsed straight as his mouth opened wide, a wordless scream of pain tore through his entire body, the deathly shriek drowned by the raging storm outside. Kurumi's powers immediately reported to her of this occurrence, quickly reminding her of a disease named tetanus. Yet she knew that she killed foreign bacteria and dissolved any chemicals that even had a change of affecting Naruto. Then why was he having this tetanus-like attack? Quickly she mobilized more of her power, spreading within his body to check his condition, her Yuki the only thing that prevented his death. A powerful wave of force blew out of nowhere within the darkness of Naruto's mindscape, blowing out all the flickering candles that provided what meager light within the mindscape, drowning Kurumi in utter darkness so black she cannot even see her hand even with her enhanced senses. But what terrified her most was that her power was mysteriously blocked from spreading out. Fortunately, she still had a smidgen of her power outside her cage, still within Naruto. She immediately attempted controlling the small pockets of power that was still available within Naruto's body and used what was not at a lethal injury to analyze the condition of Naruto's body. And what she found out was more horrifying than she could ever predict. A massive corruption was spreading throughout his chakra coil beginning from his chakra core, right where chakra was molded and made. The spreading corruption nearly burned the entirety of Naruto's chakra core, almost entirely destroying his ability to produce chakra to survive. And without it, she saw how parts of his body began breaking down, the very energy it needed to survive destroyed. Nearly every part of Naruto's body was held by Yuki, slightly laced with his own chakra that was pulled together with the Yuki to ensure compatibility and lack of rejection. And as Naruto's chakra core began burning out, his natural chakra began fading out into nothingness, causing the tissues to quickly break down, her corrosive Yuki eating through them. No, she screamed out at the top of her lungs. Immediately she pulled back every single strand of Yuki that she had within Naruto's body, diverting them towards the location where his chakra was the strongest now that his chakra core was damaged. With each single flow of her Yuki within his chakra network, she could feel them slowly tear on his coils, wearing them down greatly. Only her intense control made her succeed at transferring all the chakra towards the most intense location of chakra, the gate of death of the 8 inner gates, right at his heart. Even so, she could already observe his heart began breaking down, having barely enough chakra to prevent the damage from her Yuki. Her efforts bore fruit as she saw how the damage at his chakra system slowed down, though the damage that was repaired before remained and only getting worse as the parts lost the very material that made them hold together in the first place. Her entire effort to keep Naruto alive never looked more worthless than it was now. "Why?" she screamed to the infinite darkness. Immediately she recalled something that Mito once taught her before regarding the nature of Yuki. It is corrosive by nature, and for a Jinchuriki to use the power of the Biju sealed within them properly, they need a huge amount of safeguards. And most Jinchuriki were made when they're young because only they had the ability to adapt to the powerful Yuki. Mito was capable of sealing Kurumi even when she was relatively old because she is an Uzumaki who naturally had a stronger chakra that can counter the effects of her Yuki, and because she had a huge amount of safeguards to ensure her safety. Naruto meanwhile, was too young to fully adapt to the huge amount of corrosive chakra flowing within him on a daily basis, had too little chakra to reduce the effect of her Yuki, and his seal lacked the same safeguards that was used on Mito because Kurumi was his parents' friend. All of this overloaded his chakra core, and it's a testament to the Uzumaki blood's legendary life force that allowed him to survive nearly 2 years in such a way. Yet everything had its limits, and Kurumi flooding his body with so much Yuki was the last straw. She was speechless as the facts lined up within her mind, finally realizing the reason for Naruto's terrible injury just now, only compounded by the matron's drunken beating. Kurumi was shaken to her very core, for it was her own goodwill that nearly tore Naruto's body apart. Yet she knew that it was not the time to whine and moan, for she needed to find a solution to the problem, and she needed it fast. She estimated that she had barely hours before Naruto's chakra core fully disintegrates, killing him. Right now, at the very least, most of his tenketsu around his navel where the chakra core was located was already compromised, so she cannot supply any more Yuki if she needed to. She only had a relatively small amount to work with, and she needed to fix his chakra network fast. Her tears haven't stopped nor did they slow down, but she knew she needed to be quick about it. He was the last surviving Uzumaki and Namikaze clan member, a daughter of her best friend, and most importantly, her atonement. If she had to sacrifice her life to save him, then so be it. She ran through everything about chakra coil damage in humans that she learned from Hashirama all those years ago. If one's chakra coil was burned out, the main method of healing was to let the injured rest, allowing his own chakra to clear the blockade within his system, and to allow his chakra to stimulate and heal the coils themselves. But chakra core damage is harder to heal. It requires a small amount of chakra injection to the coil periodically to stimulate their production and control functions, while also allowing the patient's own chakra that's still remaining to slowly heal the core as well. Basically, the patient needs a small amount of chakra injection constantly and lots of time. Both of which Naruto does not have. She nearly went into panic mode at this realization. How can she help heal Naruto? She was within his chakra core, so any damage to his core would mean that she was also unable to help him. Naruto's body was already breaking apart, so he had no time to lose. Every second counts, and she does not even have the slightest idea on how to fix his body. A small drop of idea struck her mind. What if she were to make a new chakra core for him? She immediately dismissed the idea, labeling it as ridiculous. How can she make a new chakra core? But as she thought of other ways to save Naruto, again and again her mind wandered back towards the ridiculous idea. She had no other way of saving him, and this was the only idea that came to her mind. But will it work? As ridiculous as the idea sounds like, she had no other way to save him, and there were no other methods available for him. It was almost impossible for him to be saved now unless if someone were to find Naruto right now and realize his chakra damage. The more she thought about it, the more appealing she thought the idea was. Being a creature made of chakra, she understood more about chakra than anyone alive. Not to mention the fact that she knew Naruto's body inside and out right now. Having seen no other path to Naruto's recovery, she began to think of how to implement the new chakra core. It must meld together within his very genes, so that it will not induce an autoimmune rejection response. She also needed some materials to make it, and the only thing that came to mind was to slightly thin down Naruto's muscles to gain the materials. Other than that, her Yuki will also be used to form and shape the new organ and making sure that it perfectly works in controlling, producing, and compressing his chakra. She would also need a second organ, one that will save the stem cells for every other organs and functions within Naruto to act as a pseudo-reset button in case she failed. It needs to store and monitor his body, making sure everything is working perfectly. If it does not, she can heal or restore the problematic parts based on the samples it had within it. She may not be able to stop Naruto's chakra core from being burned with it, but at least she might be able to make sure he lives. It will be a first in the world. Unprecedented, untested and unproven. And only within her mind did it exist. Slowly she closed her eyes. In her mind, she imagined the structure of the two new organs, how they would integrate with his body, and how they would work. Multitudes of shapes and ideas floated within her head. The sound of the heavy storm acting as the thunderous background music to the turmoil she was in right now. And finally, after what seemed like years of brainstorming to her, she managed to figure out everything, or at least, everything she can think of. She will have to ad-lib something up in case of any issues little Naruto might experience. Naruto, I'm sorry, she whispered towards the unconscious Naruto. I have no other way to heal you, and only this can fix you up. I'll make sure that you survive to the future, both as my duty and as my punishment. So please, forgive me this. And as she finished, she closed her eyes, preparing to control her power. Even detached from her, she still had control over it, though the further the power was from her, the worse her control was. But as close as within Naruto's body was not an issue with her. Her eyes closed shut as she concentrated her every thought towards the small amount of power still remaining at Naruto's heart before splitting it into three. One to make the new chakra core, and the other two to create the stem cell storage. She believed that having two of the latter would be better since one can support the other in case it was damaged for any reason. Through Naruto's chakra system the three small blobs of Yuki moved before they rest at their destination. At his throat and below his ribs for the two stem cell storage, and beside his heart for the new chakra core. Not wanting to aggravate Naruto's chakra system further, she quickly went to work, her Yuki eroding the areas non-lethal to Naruto before dragging it towards the location of the new organs. The materials coalesced into blobs each, and with her mind and imagination she molded and formed the tiny materials, her powers in action as she modified the blobs of flesh into the new organs she needed. And at the very instant her powers flowed within his body, the deterioration of his chakra system began even faster. Yet Kurumi was as calm and collected as she could possibly be, slowly guiding her powers to create the necessary functions for Naruto, for she knew that her failure would mean a dead Naruto. And that was enough of a reason for her to concentrate everything she had towards the creation of the new organs. She will not mess this up. It took nearly half an hour, a time that seemed like eternity for her before she finally finished forming the organs. But she knew that forming the organs was only the first step. Now, she needed to link them towards Naruto's body, ensuring that they will function properly without any issues. Her power stretched towards the closest major blood vessels to the new organs before she made new blood vessels and capillaries, stretching to and from the closest arteries and veins towards the new organs, ensuring their operations. Within a few short moments she finished and felt blood circulating within the tiny organs as Naruto's heart pumped fresh blood towards them. Relief clear in her mind as she felt the oxygen exchange taking place within the new organs. Risking major damage to Naruto's chakra system, she spread her power through his entire body. One part of her power took cell samples to be stored within the stem cell storage, while another part of it tore through Naruto's chakra system deliberately before she began constructing a new bridge connecting the new chakra core to the previous system. It does not take long for her to finish gathering the cell samples. After they were successfully stored within the new organs, she set her sights on a different place, the most dangerous of all location within the body to modify, the brain. Part of her power went towards his brain as the other painstakingly created the new chakra pathways for the new chakra core. Something that cannot be done in a haste. She knew she was risking permanent damage to Naruto's chakra system, but this was the only way for her to rescue him. Her power slowly covered Naruto's brain as she looked for the most major change, to fit in the new organs within his body. A part of the brain within the medulla oblongata controls subconscious chakra generation. She knew this fact. She just needed the part to register the new chakra core as something that can generate new chakra, which was easier said than done. Another hour passed, and Naruto's chakra core was very nearing full collapse now. She estimated that she would only have about 2 hours at best before the main chakra core completely burns out. But she finally managed to make Naruto's body accept the new organs, and to have the brain control the chakra generation by the new organ. It was not easy, but she succeeded. And as the catalyst for chakra generation, she pushed the last remains of her power towards the new chakra core, modified to be able to accept and regulate Yuki as well instead of just regular chakra before filtering the Yuki to regular chakra given enough time. Or at least, that was what she planned for it. A minute, then 2, then it stretched to 5. Yet no chakra came from Naruto's supposedly new chakra core. Worries slowly began settling in her as she noticed the lack of chakra production from the new organ. She moved small pockets of her power, risking more damage to his chakra system. She could only cringe in fear as she felt how Naruto's chakra system began breaking down, yet she knew she needed to do so. She read the condition of Naruto's body together with the new organ using what remained of her Yuki outside Naruto's damaged chakra core, slowly muttering the status of the new organ. All blood vessels are working, and oxygen exchange is in perfect order. Chakra network eroded, but connected to the new organ. But why is it not working? She yelled to herself. She did everything right. It should work by now. Why haven't it? In a last-ditch attempt, she removed every single shred of Yuki she had at Naruto's new chakra core, gathering them at the stem cell pockets. The new packets worked, something that slightly relieved her, yet she knew that until Naruto's chakra began flowing in earnest, his life was still in danger. She monitored the condition of his body using the slight remains of her Yuki everywhere within his body. Slowly she saw as Naruto's own chakra flowed within the new chakra core, circulating within the small fleshy blob. Her heart soared as she saw the human chakra flowing into the new core, hoping that it would be the catalyst needed. Yet nothing happened. Chakra flowed and was consumed by the new organ somehow, but nothing came out. Not even a small trickle. Her heart sank deeper than the ocean floor as she saw how Naruto's chakra core began deteriorating, slowly destroying itself from the lack of his own powers within it. No, Naruto, don't die, she screamed out as loud as possible. She knew that more than anything, one's own will to live played a very important role in chakra generation. Please, live, she screamed out once more, hoping that he would hear her. Wake up, please. Her heart-rending screams of pain tore through the darkness of his mindscape. Please. She crumpled on the wet floor of the sewer, her body impacting the water with a loud splash, the wake of her fall creating ripples, infinitely echoing within the dank sewers. "Please, don't leave me alone," she continued, her voice no more than a whisper as her tears fell into the waters. She had lost everything, her good friends, her teachers, her father, even her siblings as they lost themselves within the throes of the Jubi's maddening powers. And with Naruto gone, she would be completely alone in the world, with no one to help her or to befriend her. She would lose everything, even her sanity as she forgot the words of her father and his teachings. She would end up being nothing but a beast, living immortal only to destroy and to kill. A small pulse throbbed from within Naruto, causing Kurumi to look up from her prone position. Immediately she stood up to her full height, her eyes closed. Her powers quickly provided her with a diagnostic detail of his body. And she saw as the small blob of chakra pulsed like a heart. Slowly, chakras swirled within it from what's left within his body. And she saw how the chakra that went and exited again, but with an infinitesimally small addition to it. And she immediately knew, then and there, that she had succeeded. She released the breath she never knew she held as she saw the organ working as she originally planned, generating minute amounts of chakra just enough to ensure Naruto's body to heal itself. She quickly slumped on the flooded floor of her cage, mental exhaustion taking over her body as she finished with Naruto's modification. "I hate this power," she whispered. "It was too powerful. It's almost godly, what she can do with it." Only today, at a host that haven't adapted to the sheer potency of her Yuki, did she found an issue with it. Previously, Mito can even heal major damages with it, even an arm that was almost torn off. It's madness, that's what it is. Yet she was also thankful to the power, for Naruto would never survive if not for it. At least his convulsions stopped, she said as she observed Naruto's status with her mind's eye, observing how his body finally relaxed. And she swore to herself at that point, that if she had to use the power she loathed if it ensured his survival, then so be it. He was her only chance at redemption, and he needed to survive for that. And now, time to wait. She whispered to herself again as she laid down on the wet floor, her remaining power monitoring Naruto's status as best as she could, the raging storm outside the only sound accompanying her. Break. Hours passed by after her operation, the tropical storm already a bad memory within everyone's mind by that time as the light of the daybreak sun began shining at the horizon. A sight to behold to anyone who's up to see it. Yet it wasn't even given a passing thought by Kurumi, her main focus being Naruto's well-being. Much to her relief, the new organs worked wonders to Naruto's recovery. The chakra core produced and regulated chakra as she wanted it to, slowly producing more to fill in the lack of chakra Naruto had before. His original chakra core has stopped its lethal deterioration, already having his human chakra flowing through it, allowing it to recover as his secondary chakra core regulated and produced the chakra he needed to live. The other organ also worked wonders, having already stored the stem cells of his other organs and quickly producing new ones to heal the parts of his body that was injured from last night's drunken beating by the mad matron. She usually beat him with that stick of hers, but it was never this bad. His body was healing slower than she wanted, but that's fine with her. She won't want to risk more damage to his recovering chakra system by having her Yuki accelerate his recovery. From the way he was progressing though, his chakra will have recovered fully by the day's end. And when he's recovered, she can let her Yuki flow again, letting his chakra intermingle with her powers more instead of flooding his chakra pathways like she did before. I think I need a name for those new organs, she thought. She had just created new organs to help heal his body, so she needed to name them. Maybe the linker core for the new chakra core, and the progenoid glands for the stem cell storage and recovery? Sounds like good names, she thought, ideas suddenly flowing within her mind out of nowhere. Quickly she shook her head. She had bigger issues to think of than silly names for the organs as she monitored Naruto's condition. Though she admitted they sound pretty cool. The linker core, that's a pretty cool name, she thought, a small blush at her own self-praise on her face. A minute amount of Yuki was spread all over Naruto's body for her to use in monitoring his condition, so small it does not interfere within his healing chakra system. She was confused as to why Naruto haven't woken up yet. Even through everything he went through, he would wake up as soon as he was healed. She blamed the lack of his chakra within his body for his lack of consciousness. Her Yuki had finally spread around Naruto's body at an intensity that won't bother his recovering chakra system too much. Immediately she observed everything within his body with her mind's eye. And what she found out was more terrifying than she could ever imagine. His bones were broken, some of the shards even piercing his organs. But that was not her biggest worry. His entire body was breaking down at a cellular level, with nearly all his tissues and bodily functions breaking down. The presence of her Yuki helped jumpstart their healing, yet she saw that it was too slow in comparison to the breakdown of his bodily functions. Even now, his blood pressure was dropping badly, a result of his damaged heart. Naruto! She screamed out immediately as the terrifying reality of Naruto's condition finally made itself known to her. Her first reaction was to quickly spread her Yuki to heal him, only to stop just in time as she recalled the damage his chakra coils were suffering. If she were to spread her Yuki and heal him at the same intensity as she did before, she would quickly overwhelm the new linker core's chakra production, killing him as he lost the very power that made him live. Yet she knew she cannot ignore the damage. Her examinations of his body told her that he would die very, very quickly as his entire body broke down, having lost the very Yuki that supported and made it grow before with Naruto's chakra core breakdown. The healing was accelerated by the presence of her Yuki, she knew, yet the rate of deterioration was worse than the rate of recovery. No matter what, he would die. If the matron didn't do anything, then he would die by the end of the week at best. Kurumi was panicking by now as she ran around within her cage, massive splashes of filthy water heard within the dark space. What should I do? What should I do? Someone, help me! She yelled out within the infinite darkness that was the top of Naruto's mindscape. She never stopped running in circles as every avenue of rescue she had for little Naruto was utterly blocked, and his death never looked closer than it was now. Father, Mito, Kushina, please, help me, anyone, she whispered, her head already slumping down in defeat. This was it, for her and for Naruto. But she jerked back up as an idea struck her mind. What if, just like his chakra core and that new organ, she made new ones to help him with his recovery? Her teeth crackled as she gnawed on her long claws, her nervousness at the thought something even Naruto could see. She may have promised that she would do anything to save him, but modifying his body again? Should she? It was already a huge change to how a human should work, and making them temporary was not an option. It needs to meld with Naruto's body, both for today and for his future. A loud smack echoed within the dark mindscape as she smacked her face. Keep yourself together, she yelled, more to psyche herself up. Naruto must survive. He must, no matter what. And she had already promised to herself that he would survive, no matter what. Even if she had to rely on her repulsive power, then she must. But for now, she needed to stop Naruto's deteriorating body from breaking down even faster. And with a quick examination, she found out an oddity, something she could take advantage of to help him. The places where his tissues corrode was only where it touched other damaged tissues. With precision born of practice and knowledge, she sent a microscopic amount of Yuki to those parts, quickly using it as scalpels to cut them off without affecting the functionality as her Yuki accelerated the healing of the remaining tissues. She carried the damaged tissues within his bloodstream, once again carrying them to different locations for her to create new organs for Naruto. Let's see, she whispered, her mind quickly running through the issues he was facing. Low blood pressure, damaged tissues, and broken, unhealed bones. Her ideas were mad, even by her standard, but she knew he needed these. Her Yuki may not make the damaged tissues heal themselves back to their actual strength or functions, but what she can do with them would be more than enough right now. Her Yuki corroded the damaged tissues further before finally ending up with a sort of biological slush, contained within his bloodstream and carefully isolated by an extremely thin mixture of chakra and Yuki so that her Yuki won't contaminate his chakra system again. And with the same mixture, she split them into parts which went around his comatose body as she prepared to once again work her magic. This time though, she used a mixture of Yuki and chakra, his chakra manipulated by her Yuki into the would-be organs to prevent any rejection or any breakdown like it did before with pure Yuki. Thankfully, the second chakra core, the linker core, she reminded herself, quickly adapted, increasing its small chakra production slightly higher to compensate for what she took away. Having had experience with it, she did not take long to mold the tiny flesh slush into different organs, all meant to help Naruto. One was located right beside his heart, which was to be a secondary heart to help his blood circulation and make sure he had a good amount of oxygenated blood within his system. Another would be something called the Biscopea. I sure can come up with some good names, she boasted to herself. An organ that would help heal and recover Naruto's body tissues and strengthen his muscular system, allowing him to take more punishment than a regular person just in case something similar happened again. The third was the Osmodilla. Where did these names came from? She wondered all of a sudden. An organ that will help heal and strengthen his skeletal structure, preventing them from breaking easily even with his young age. Another organ was the Susan membrane, for suspended animation, get it? She giggled as she talked to herself. One layer over the brain that would help send him in an artificial coma so that he can easily be healed by his body or by someone else. So focused was her at the construction and formation of the organs that she failed to realize that the matron had stood over Naruto, a bowl of food, once more in her hand with her usual stick in the other, hate filling her eyes as she glared towards Naruto's body on the ground. So you didn't die, she slowly whispered. She may not recall completely what she did last night as she was drunk, but she knew enough to know. Not to mention the pieces of the broken ceramic sake bottle still all over the small room. Her hand moved, spilling the contents messily on Naruto's tiny body. Must be some demon magics that helped him survive, she thought. No matter. You will be here for a long time, and I will have many more chance to use your demon magics. And unlike the previous days, she didn't hit him with the stick and just turned around, a small disgusted scoff coming from her as she did. A small saving grace for the modified little Naruto. She slowly walked towards the kitchen of her orphanage, but a sound from the side of the building stopped her, causing her to walk towards the source of the sound. As she did, the noises grew louder, before loud whispers were heard from the same location. With a single leap she landed right in front of the source of the noises, which, unsurprisingly, were her orphan charges. Kids! She stood in front of the fallen kids, hands on her waist with the punishing stick in another. What are you doing? A boy started to say, yet his eyes darted everywhere but towards her as nervous sweat began dripping down his brow. We want to play. Yeah, the bunch of kids chorused together, joining the boys' quickly made up reasoning. She just shook her head at the kids with a smile on her face. It's not good trying to lie to me, kids. Now, what were you looking at just now? In the end, the boy deflated, knowing that it's useless to lie to his foster mother. We were just looking at you. Mion told us you kept a demon here, came his reply, an indignant, hey, coming from Mion at the edge of the bunch. She said that you were protecting us from it. You should learn to keep secrets better, Mion, she chastised, causing Mion to puff her cheeks, a blush on them. But she is correct, she replied, quickly going into serious mode as she stared at the kids. In that hut there is a demon, and it is bad. Very bad. It hurt many people before, and you must not come close. She lifted the stick she wielded, showing it to the gaping kids. This is my weapon to pacify it. You must not touch it or use it, understand? And you must not speak of it at all. Let me protect all of you. She smiled as she watched the kids all nod as one, knowing that she meant business as she did. Now go. I'll prepare breakfast for all of us. And only with those words, all the kids rushed back towards the orphanage's building, cheers and yells of happiness in their wake. As they did, she shot one last glare towards the small hut which contained Naruto. As long as you are under my watch, I won't let you come close to anyone. You will remain there, until I had enough of you. Having said her farewell, she followed the kids' steps, heading towards the kitchen. Hours passed quickly afterwards as Kurumi focused her everything on modifying Naruto's body to allow him to survive another day at the orphanage. She nearly ran out of nutrients to enrich and enhance his body, but she managed to feel the matron's usual food dumping and quickly took the chance to digest and absorb the food, allowing her to focus on creating said new organs in Naruto's body. The organs were complete, and all of them are working as they should be. Naruto's pale body quickly gained some much healthier color as his blood pressure and flow rate increased thanks to the secondary heart, though still nowhere near being completely healthy. The Susan membrane worked near instantly, keeping Naruto's body comatose, allowing her to monitor his condition easily and healing whatever's needed. His brain had been modified, allowing it to control the organs. The other new organs are working well too, with the progenoid glands storing the stem cells of the new organs and making sure every part of him was working properly. Both the Biscopea and Osmodula had begun secreting the necessary biochemicals to enhance his muscles and bones. She knew the enhancements might not be instantaneous, but at least he will survive better now. Even his linker core functioned perfectly, regulating his chakra properly despite her Yuki flowing together. His original chakra core had healed nicely thanks to the chakra produced by the linker core. His chakra, ever so strong thanks to his Uzumaki blood, was nearly completely filled, and this was probably what accelerated his chakra core's recovery. This also allowed Kurumi to absorb the external nutrients properly, no longer doing any damage to his body with her Yuki thanks to the human chakra lacing within the thin Yuki strands she always controlled. Yet she knew it was not enough. She might just cause the same issue again, tearing his young body apart due to her Yuki. The only reason that she could freely manipulate his chakra was from his comatose state. If not, the human's conscious would automatically cause his chakra to reject the control her Yuki had over it, something she discovered when Mito experimented with her Yuki all those time ago. He needs to be able to heal from injuries quickly, and become able to act on his own. Her mind quickly calculated and planned for a third round of organ enhancements, organs that can accelerate his healing and allow him to survive far longer than a regular human. Two ideas quickly came to mind. One was an organ that will generate special cells like the human's immune system T cells, but can also help heal wounds and was supercharged, allowing him to survive diseases others couldn't. The second would be something that changes his blood composition, allowing his blood to carry more nutrients and oxygen better to the entire body. The first was named the Laraman's organ, which creates the Laraman cells, and the second was the hemastamen. Once again, with a sigh and a sad frown on her lips, she molded her powers, ready to perform the new modifications once more. "I'm sorry, Naruto," she whispered towards the unconscious Naruto. "No one should go through something like this." Droplets of tears fell into the dark waters of the scarcely illuminated mindscape as her powers flooded the mindscape once more, bathing everything in a blood-red glow. Break. It has been 3 days from the fated day where Naruto's body need to be modified. Kurumi watched his unconscious mental representative within his mindscape with fear in her eyes, since he haven't woken up yet. She knew that everything about his body was fine. Her enhancements were all functioning perfectly, and all of his body's systems were functioning perfectly, both new and old. Even the Susan membrane had stopped putting Naruto in a coma, and his bodily functions are working as strong as ever. Yet, returned to consciousness, he had not. "Naruto," Kurumi whispered towards the body in front of her. "Naruto, wake up, please. Don't play with me like this." Her tail slowly snaked past the massive bars and reached Naruto's prone body. She gave him a gentle nudge, trying to physically wake him up. "Naruto, wake up, please," she begged, her tails nudging his body again and again. "Naruto," Kurumi cried out as she fell on the wet floor, her tears falling non-stop. He could not break out of his coma, and it was all her fault. Her desperate modifications must have toyed too much with his brain, permanently putting him in a coma. He was a vegetable now, an invalid, not alive but not dead all the same. "Naruto, ooh," came Kurumi's sorrowful scream, a scream full of regret and despair. She should not have did those modifications. He should not have lived like this. He should not even have to go through all these effort just to make him survive. "It's all my fault. I'm the only one guilty. You shouldn't have to go through all this." Her thunderous roar echoed within every corner of Naruto's labyrinthine mindscape, bringing with them her regret, disappointment, and sadness. As she was about to let loose another roar, Naruto's body twitched. A small twitch, barely visible to someone else, but not her. Her hope rose higher than the sky as she caught the small twitch at the corner of her eyes. "Naruto," she whispered once more. But unlike her previous calls, this one was filled with hope. "Naruto, are you awake?" Slowly the twitches increase in intensity, almost as if responding to her call. Slowly his hands moved and touched the wet floor, causing her eyes to widen and a smile to blossom on her face. Without any prompting, his hands pushed the wet floor. And with a last spurt of strength, his body straightened as he stood, his entire body wobbling unsteadily. He immediately lost his balance, causing him to fall on his behind with a small splash. But most importantly, he was back. Naruto! Kurumi yelled, tears of happiness falling from her eyes as she saw this. Her tails darted towards his body and quickly wrapped around him before he carried him towards her face, as close as possible to her eyes. "You're alive," she screamed, not caring if Naruto was injured from the sheer volume of her scream. "Umi!" Naruto yelled in response, his hands quickly covering his ears to prevent any lasting damage to them. "Umi!" he yelled out as he glared towards his guardian. "Umi!" he yelled once more as his hand waved around without objective. "Sorry," she replied sheepishly. But what's important to her was that he's alive and well. "But you're okay. And that's what's important. Umi!" he yelled again with a smile on his face. One hand pointed towards himself. "Ruto! Good!" Kurumi excitedly yelled. "We can start again now," she cheerfully yet tearfully said, her mind spinning with the things she could have him learn now that he's back and alive, and better than ever, almost as if he never went through anything. She knew that he shouldn't even be able to say his name, much less glare at her. She knew he should be unable to even stand properly now. Yet she pushed everything to the deepest side of her mind. For now, she only wanted to enjoy his warmth, the very feeling that she swore she would protect. She just wanted him to stay with her for now, damn all the errant thoughts. And so, Kurumi played with her charge, as if he never went through a life-threatening situation. 2 years old. For others, that age was just the start of their young lives. Yet for Naruto, it almost felt like a century away. He lived through the matron's beatings and inedible food, managing to scrape by his survival every day, thanks to Kurumi and her forced enhancements. If not for that, he might not be able to see the day he reached 2. Today, just like the other days, he was cheerfully running within the darkness of his dimly lit mindscape in front of Kurumi's cage, not even bothering about the smelly waters as the splashes his footsteps made echoed within the immense chambers. Only here he can act like a regular child, playing around without a care in the world. Kurumi stood behind her cage, watching him with a smile. "Naruto, come here," she said, a tail slowly reaching out from behind the bars towards the energetic child in front of her. "Okay, Tilda." He quickly climbed on top of her tail, hugging it with all his might so as to not fall. "I really like your tail, Kurumi-chan." "Yes, you do," came her somber reply. Her enhancements seemed to have some unpredictable side effects to his body. Her constant modification of his brain to adapt to the new organs seemed to have improved them, allowing Naruto to speak fluently despite his young age. He also learned faster, taking only a month to fully learn how to speak, and another couple months to properly pronounce the words without any of the typical childish slurs in those aged 8 to 10 years old. She had no idea what else that her enhancements changed, so she always kept a close look at his situation. His body was much stronger than a regular child now, but he was still a baby in the end. Stronger than a boy 3 times his age was nothing much to say, but what the enhanced muscles brought by the Biscopeia helped him to endure the beatings the matron put him through easily. And with his improved immune system and healing factor, he no longer needed any help to survive, except for his nutrient intake, which was still abysmal. She brought him towards her head, a sad smile on her face as she thought of the enhancements. No one should require those changes just to survive, especially one directly related to a Hokage and the last descendant of the Uzumaki royalty. Yet she knew it wasn't the time yet for her to tell him all this. He needs to grow more, to gain more strength before she could tell him the truth behind his identity. "You've done all the exercises I told you to?" she asked. "Yup," came his cheerful reply. Nowadays, Kurumi placed him through many physical exercises meant to ensure a proper growth for his body despite the small area he was placed in. Being Naruto, he followed without question, performing those exercises every day. As a result, he was stronger, faster, and more agile than any child 3 times his age. To prevent the matron from catching him training himself, he was forced to train at night, when the entire orphanage was sleeping. So far, it seemed to work. "Have you eaten?" "Those were terrible." He blanched, the foul taste of the food he was fed with still lingering within his mouth. "You know you won't be able to survive without it," she said in reply. She knew the food was terrible. Oh, how she knew. But she also knew that he won't survive without it. Food he was given was the only thing that kept him between dying. It doesn't matter if he hates it, he still need to eat them. "But can't I eat something else?" Those are terrible, he protested. He rejected the idea again and again before, but he knew his beloved and only friend Kurumi-chan within his mind won't let him to do so, saying that it's necessary for his survival. Which it was, but that doesn't mean he can't hate it. And I have just the idea to help with that, she replied with a smile. In her mind, ideas for more enhancements already popped up to help him solve his nutritional issue. He needed those nutrients critically, and what better way to have him look for it? To be honest, she didn't like modifying his body. But he needed those nutrients, and she had no other idea how to. You're going to modify me again? Naruto asked with a tilt of his head. She already told him of the modifications and the effects to him, and he accepted it easily. She did it to ensure he survived, anyway. Yes, she replied with a nod. It always hurts her to see him like this, a cheerful and excitable child, yet not really knowing why he was punished and hurt constantly. This time, there are more organs that I want to add than before, she admitted. You'll be unconscious during the procedure, so you won't feel anything. Oh, cool, he replied excitedly. She had been teaching him about human physiology, and it was something exciting to see the master at work. Though he can't really see it since he would be out cold, as she said. What are you going to add this time? The first is the cataleption node, which will give you the ability to forfeit sleep, making you capable of staying up for days by shutting down only a few parts of your brain at a time instead of your entire brain. This also gives the benefit of not needing to be fully asleep to get rest, putting you in a meditative state where the brain rests itself temporarily, which makes you capable of resting while still aware of your surroundings. You will still need a full sleep after some time though. This does not completely replace a good night's sleep. Sounds great, he answered in excitement, already leaping in joy at this. She continued, the second is the oculobe, which will improve your eyesight so much, that not only will you see much further than a normal human, you will also be able to see during the darkest of nights like it's daylight. Also, it gives you special visual modes. Chakra sight, where you can see the flow of chakra of any living being, and infrared sight, which allows you to see heat, allowing you to see a target even in total, absolute darkness. They are normally activated at the same time, with the infrared sight automatically filtering out background heat or anything that's too hot. However, you can also turn them off anytime you want with just a thought, which allows you to control whether or not you can see chakra and/or heat. Chakra? It's something that a group of people called ninja or shinobi use as their power, and is available in every living being, she explained. I'll teach you how to use it later, but not right now. Okay, Tilda. The third is the preomner, a secondary stomach that can neutralize any and all biochemical contaminants and any poisons that you ingest. It also allows your body to digest anything that you eat, allowing you to gain nutrition even from supposedly inedible stuff. It can even store any toxic products that cannot be digested before forcefully pushing them back to your mouth where you can just vomit it out, preventing any dangerous toxin from entering your system. The fourth is the liman's ears, a complete ear replacement that completely removes the effects of nausea, dizziness, and vertigo due to motion, and prevents a loss of balance in any condition, preventing enemies from destabilizing your base. It also gives much better listening capability, allowing you to easily track or listen to anything around you and to judge a target's distance and actions. It will also filter out any sound you want while strengthening those that are desired, enabling you to completely focus your entire sense of hearing to a single target if required. The last organ is the omophagia, an organ that allows you to absorb information from the brains of any animal that you eat, allowing you to gain their memories and skills. It also allows you to learn techniques and skills from animals that you hunt and enemies that you might kill later on. The brains that you eat can even be digested by the preomner as well, giving you much needed nutrients. How did that last one work? Naruto questioned, his face scrunched in confusion. So he can eat something and gain its knowledge? Now that's a bit hard to explain, Kurumi admitted. Memories are stored within the brain for any creature. That's why you can train yourself in this mindscape and use that knowledge in the outside world. Even muscle memory is mental, in that you have trained your body to react instantly to certain attacks or events, something that will be etched in your mind. The omophagia filters the gathering of neurons that contain memories. It will quickly absorb these neurons and analyze them, gaining their memories. Oh, okay. But before she could do anything, another question popped out of his mouth. Say, Kurumi-chan, where did you get the ideas for these organs? They even have cool names for them. Wonder how you came up with them. He cannot help but feel curious about this. It's almost as if she knew the idea already, and was just trying to figure out how to make them for real. I don't really know, she admitted with a shrug. They just appeared, but mostly it's because they're what you require at the time, like the ones I just told you of. They allow you to train late at night and hunt and/or forage for food while being able to detect and hide from those who would try to stop you, though you'll need to learn how to move quickly and quietly. But the names, never thought about that, honestly. They just came to my mind. As long as they had names, it's better than not, right? Naruto just nodded in agreement. Are you ready now? She asked one last time. No more questions? Naruto drew a deep breath in his mindscape and let it all out in a massive whoosh as he psyched himself up. I'm ready. Let's do this. Kurumi placed him down on the wet floor before he lay down with arms spread wide. Kurumi's massive claw hovered over Naruto's prone body before she pricked his skin, sending a wave of Yuki through his body. The first thing she did was to engage his Susan membrane, putting him in a comatose state. Immediately she went to work, modifying his body through the entire night, a secret known only to her and Naruto. Break. The morning sun split the clouds when Naruto's operation ended. With her experience at modifying his body, plus the comatose state he was put into, she was faster than before in making all those organs despite a higher number of the organs. The organs have been properly integrated within his body, and she had disabled the Susan membrane's functions, allowing him to wake up normally. Okay Naruto. We're done, so you can open your eyes now, came Kurumi's voice from their mental link, a voice which sounded strangely loud to him. It was about a month after her first modifications that made Naruto knew the existence of the mental link. And she always used it to keep him company, or just to have him train his body to increase his muscular strength as best as he could with his age. This time, his procedure gave him near instant effects. He could clearly hear everything around him. The drop of his sweat on the floor, the sound of an old bed creaking, the footsteps of rats within the walls, even the creak the old house made as the sun's rays warmed its structure. Every sound seemed to echo within his head. Just think of lowering the volume down. The liman's ears will slow them down immediately. Complying, Naruto thought of lowering the voices down. Much to his amazement, the voices did quiet down to a normal level. Remembering the list of implants that were done to him, he opened his tightly shut eyes. Once more, he was amazed at what he saw. Everything he saw had a different color to it. The door of his closet had a light bluish color to it and everything else as well. Looking at his hands, he saw that it had a certain orangish color to it with a dark bluish hue in it. That was because your body temperature is higher than a regular person's and because you have more chakra than anyone else, Kurumi said once she noticed what Naruto saw from his eyes. Body temperature? Naruto asked, looking around for any reference points in temperature. Yup, Kurumi said with pride. It seemed that her operation succeeded. The hotter something is, the redder it will be. The colder something is, the bluer it will be, until it becomes black at an incredibly cold temperature. See the door? Kurumi said, referring to the door that Naruto saw. That means that the door was cold, but not too cold. Since it automatically removes ambient temperature, you won't see the temperature of the air, but any other objects are visible. Wow, Naruto replied, extremely excited at the sights that he would see with his new eyes. Can't wait to try them out later. His excitement even leaked to his face, where a long, face-splitting smile was visible on it, belying the pain he was put through only a couple hours ago. Relax, Naruto, Kurumi said with a chuckle, trying to calm the excited boy down. The modifications last night were meant to give you the ability to hunt at night while avoiding everyone else so that you can get enough food for your improved body. However, you can also try them out to practice with them before you actually use them for what they're supposed to be tonight. Okay, he said eagerly. Break. The day passed by as usual, with Naruto being given the terrible food by the matron, and isolated from everyone else. Yet he already learned a lot about his oculobe within that time period. He saw that everyone else had a body color of yellow, with certain parts being green with a small dot of chakra blue in their body, signifying that they had a regular body temperature while having a small amount of chakra. His ears caught their voices and their sounds, making him isolate them instinctively, allowing him to determine the movement patterns of the people around his small hut. Naruto, ignore the rest. Use your senses to its maximum and memorize their routines, Kurumi told him, something he immediately obliged. The entire day, Naruto did nothing but observe and listen. He took note of everyone's routine, of how they moved, of how they walked. He focused his hearing to the matron and the kids, trying to learn their footsteps and gathering as much detail as he could before the night. Finally, the night came. It was late in the night as Naruto sat on the floor of his tiny room, listening to everyone's movement as well as he possibly could through the wood that made the door and the walls of the orphanage, a huge house converted for the orphans of Konoha with tall walls surrounding it. And tonight, he was going to climb out, all for the sake of food, a plan that Kurumi already thought of just a moment ago before everyone went to sleep. But first, he needed to bypass the first obstacle, the walls of his tiny room. Above the wooden walls were massive gaping air holes, enough for his tiny body to pass through. The air holes were the source of some of his worst torments as snow, rain and the sun's hot rays entered freely into his room from them. Yet today, they would become his salvation, for it gave him a way out of his torture room. With practiced ease he climbed up to the hole, using the small wooden bars to pull his body up. He inched slowly towards the top of the hut, his senses primed and ready, scanning the surroundings for any sign of the matron waking up. It took a titanic effort to him, but he finally reached the top where he stopped still again, monitoring his surroundings. He poked his head outside before he placed a hand on the other side of the wooden wall that was his cage. Slowly he climbed downwards, making sure he made no noise at all as he did so, using the tiny gaps between plywood walls to move. Finally he reached the ground before he immediately crouched on all fours, looking around within the dead of night with his enhanced senses. And what a sight out there! He never knew the earth could feel so moist and alive. He drew in a deep breath, letting the fresh air fill his lungs. A feeling of calmness and serenity enveloped him as the cold night embraced him, letting him feel a relaxing chill, something he never felt before. Slowly he crawled towards the orphanage's walls, his senses alert as he caught the cacophony of noises that the night brought up. It took him 10 minutes to reach the walls, standing about 2.5 meters tall in front of him, chafing white paint on its walls. He repeated the same process as he placed a foot on the wall, slowly climbing upwards towards the wall's top. His enhanced eyes allowed him to see the small cracks present on it, using them as footholds to reach the top. As he reached the top, his eyes scanned for everything as he hung on the other side of the wall, letting his eyes work their task as he tried tracking everything in the night. Finally satisfied, he let go of the wall, free-falling to the ground below. With a small thump he landed on the ground, his enhanced body absorbing the impact easily. He looked around, taking in the myriad of sights within the forest behind the orphanage. Being the hidden village of Leaf, they had multitudes of forests within the village itself, something that helped them train themselves. "What now?" he asked. "In front of us is a small forest. I think you can hunt for small animals in there. Don't have to go for big game yet, look for easy targets first. You only need to eat and forage for food, so don't overdo it," Kurumi said. Nodding his agreement, Naruto went straight ahead as silent as possible, his eyes scanning for prey while his ears tried catching the location of anything that might come close to him. With his special eyesight, he quickly managed to lock onto a target, a large, fist-sized rat behind a pile of leaves, busy eating what seemed like a small piece of dried fruit. "Is that okay?" he asked Kurumi. "That should be fine," she replied. "Your body could digest nearly anything that you were to eat, so you'll have no problems eating it raw. Be careful though, they're fast little critters, so it might be difficult to catch them." Naruto just nodded at this before crouching low, preparing himself to pounce on the rat with all the strength his improved muscles gave him. Keeping his eyes trained on the rat, he noted every movement it made, the fast nibbling it was doing on the fruit in its hands, the way its ears perked around to find threats, the way its whiskers seemed to jolt with every small movement around him. Nothing missed his sight as the rat enjoyed its final dinner. Finally assured of his success level, Naruto bent his knees back before pushing the ground with his entire strength, sending him flying towards the rat. The rat, however, missed this in its ecstasy of its dinner, not able to hear the sound of Naruto leaping towards it. However, the movement of the wind alerted it that something was coming, causing it to stop and drop its food. It was too late. Naruto's strong hands quickly grabbed hold of the rat before he rolled down on the ground, reducing the momentum of his jump before crouching down. The loud squeaking of the rat went unrealized and unnoticed within the forest, its voice just a few among the cacophony of the forest's night life. He looked at the struggling and squeaking rat in his hand before he asked. So how should I eat him? Just bit the head off, Kurumi replied. It was not really a necessity for Naruto to have his food cooked, and besides, if he cooked, he would be easily discovered, failing the task of hunting for his own food that he was assigned with. Don't waste any of it. Eat everything. Nodding, Naruto immediately took the still squeaking rat and placed its head in his mouth. The rat, sensing that its life was in peril, squeaked even harder and much more frantically, but it was for naught. With a powerful bite, Naruto's teeth cleaved the rat in half, sending sprays of blood all over him and silencing his chitters once and for all. Ignoring the feeling of the warm liquid on his body, Naruto chewed the rat, crunching all of it with his strong jaws, crushing bones, organs and muscles into a mix of raw, unsafe for anyone but him pile of minced rat meat. To anyone else it might seem horrifying and inedible, but to Naruto, that was the freshest food he ever had. Finally finished chewing half of it, he threw the other half into his mouth, continuing the process again, mixing the two together. After some time of chewing, he swallowed everything, where his hungry stomachs eagerly await the incoming food, preparing to digest them. That was delicious. Let's do that again, he said to Kurumi in excitement. Naruto? Kurumi sighed at his enthusiasm. He sure needed to do that again though. Okay, look around. Hunt some other animals too. Rats, snakes, hares, birds, anything. Nodding in agreement, Naruto began his hunt, looking around for any prey that he could, a huge, bloody grin on his face at the prospect of a nice game. Break. Licking his fingers after eating a squirrel that he found curling in a hole at a tree, Naruto let out a loud burp. Finally, after years of his life, his hunger was satiated. He could feel his entire body groaning in satisfaction as he gorged on the foods that he found within the forest. The mushrooms, the hanging fruits, even the insects, all of it was fair game for him. He was sitting down on the base of a tree, a stick in his hand as he picked his teeth for any residue, ignoring the blood that was dripping down his chin from his recent foods. Naruto! Kurumi shouted. Don't burp like that, it's rude. Ah! Naruto sighed in relief before letting out another loud, long burp. Sorry about that. It's just that I never felt this satisfied since ever. A pang of sadness hit Kurumi from his completely innocent statement, causing her to feel dejected. Sorry, I forgot that you never had a full meal your entire life. I just wanted to teach you some manners. Forgive me? Nah, no problem, Kurumi. Naruto replied to her words happily. If not for you and those augmentations, I'd never be able to feel all this. I'll be stuck behind that wall, not even having a complete meal. Hey, Kurumi, can we do this every day? Kurumi was wiping her eyes as she heard Naruto's words echo within the mindscape. Of course, she replied. In fact, I want you to be able to do this every day, not letting up. You need to eat a lot, Naruto. This is the only solution. Okay, he replied happily, an honest smile on his face outside his mindscape for the first time in years. A smile that could melt even the hardest of hearts, yet one that was buried beneath the tons of pain that he was put through his life. Right, Kurumi said next. You need some water to drink, and also to wash out the blood on your face. Can't let them catch you with that on, can we? Yup, he replied happily, still ecstatic at his first full stomach ever. Concentrating his ears again, he caught the sound of a small stream located close by his position. Immediately he stood, ready to rush towards it and clean his face. All the while, he still kept his senses up and at the ready in case anyone saw him. He couldn't expose himself yet. Along the way, he caught another rat, smaller in size than the first one, and promptly chewed it alive. It seemed that there were a lot of them in this area. A good source of food, if any, especially when combined with the fruits and herbs that he could forage. It didn't matter if he ate too much since his body could quickly digest the entire animal, bones and all, to become his fuel and the building blocks to his future developments. Reaching the stream, Naruto dipped his entire face into it and quickly and greedily sucking the water with his bloody mouth. Small trails of blood flowed downstream as the rushing water cleaned his face. After a while, Naruto flipped his head up, needing to take a breath. Fua, that was delicious, he said to himself. It sure is, Kurumi said with both happiness and sadness in her voice. No child should have to go through that just to get food. But now, she needed to start Naruto's training further, and hopefully they won't catch him during this important time. However, she was interrupted by Naruto, who was suddenly grabbing his head in pain. Naruto groaned as he fell on the ground, clutching his head. He was just basking from the fact that he just had a nice drink when suddenly, visions assaulted his head. Visions of him slithering on the ground, of him running through the forests, of him watching another animal, of how he tracked another creature, stalking it through the undergrowth, how his ears perked up whenever he sensed danger. Naruto, hold on, that's not you. They're memories of the animals. Kurumi shouted in fear, trying to keep Naruto holding on to who he was and not be caught in the flow of memories from the animals he just ate. This is bad, she thought. I never thought that it would take effect this fast, and definitely not to this extent. He's going to lose himself at this rate. Naruto, listen to me, she screamed again, trying to attract Naruto's attention. Naruto was struggling with the memories of the animals that he just ate. Their behavior, their instincts, their actions, their routines, all of them clashing madly with the personality that was Uzumaki Naruto. Kurumi's voice barely pierced through the dissonance of memories and minds of the creatures that he ate. As he struggled, he slowly but surely heard Kurumi's words through the calamity that was his mind right now, as if she was but a whisper within the clashing thoughts that were currently wreaking havoc in his mind. With extreme effort, Naruto used Kurumi's terrified voice to anchor himself as Uzumaki Naruto, not as a snake or a rat. With a force of will as strong as steel, Naruto managed to pull himself back amongst the myriad minds that he just ate, which he experienced as well, slowly pulling himself towards Kurumi's gentle voice. Naruto. Naruto's eyes snapped open as he heard Kurumi's last call, louder than any that he heard before, finding that he was lying spread eagle on the ground. Lifting a hand towards his face, he watched as the heat registered in his eyes in the form of orange-ish color with a dark blue center, showing his higher than normal body temperature and his immense amount of chakra before balling the hand into a fist, making sure that he was still alive. He did the same to his other hand and his legs before slowly getting back up to a sitting position and grabbed his throbbing head, feeling his twin hearts beating rapidly at his anxiety. Naruto, are you there? He heard Kurumi shouting through their mental link, trying to call out to him. Yeah, I'm fine, Kurumi, he said, rubbing off the headache that was plaguing his head. What was that? It's like I'm not me. I'm something else, he asked. Kurumi let out a sigh of relief at this response. Naruto was back, and hopefully he could still hold his own consciousness. Those were the memories of the animals that you ate, Naruto, replied Kurumi. The omophagia, if you remember, absorbs the memories from anything that you eat that had memories, allowing you to learn about them, their skills and their environment. However, it seems that it practically absorbed their entire mind as well. That just now was when their memories, experiences, their self, so to say, clashed with yours. Luckily, you recovered fast enough. Thanks for that, Kurumi, Naruto thanked her, still rubbing off his killer headache. If not for you calling me, I would have never found my way through that. A thought entered his mind then. What happens if I failed to find myself? Hesitantly, Kurumi replied, giving her theory of what might just happen in such a situation. You might just become feral. Caught between you and your recently gained animal instincts, you'll become something else. A combination of everything, yet nothing at all. It's not something that you'd want, nor would it be something that you can recover from, I think. Thanks to your iron will, you managed to hold on long enough to prevent you from being swept by the jumble of thoughts. Naruto shivered at this prospect of being caught as something that was inhuman. Something with a human's body, but with the amalgamated mind of many others, making him something human-like, yet not human at the same time. Really, thanks for that, Kurumi, he said again. A thought entered his mind at that time. Say, Kurumi, this is a bloodline, right? If my children were to do the same, how will they find themselves? They won't have you within them to call out to them. This stumped Kurumi. A little boy, not even 3 years old, already asking such a question? He'd matured faster than any other person she knew, and she knew that eventually he'd go even farther. A small voice at the back of her head spoke, telling her that it was due to her enhancements, a voice she agreed to, though she didn't necessarily show it to Naruto. Pondering on his question for a while, Kurumi finally answered, I think that you'll need to observe them. Make sure that when they did so, they did it with you or your wife beside them, so that you can call them back. You'll be their anchor, just like how I became yours. Naruto processed what Kurumi said as he nodded his understanding. He understood what she meant by that. He completely did. If what happened to him just now will be experienced by his children and their children, he need to be there to pull them back to their body and self instead of becoming the animal. A thought he did not even want to consider. Kurumi realized where Naruto's mind would be going, so to stop it, she immediately called Naruto. Naruto, enough about that. It's still early for you to think about that. Let's continue the night with some more training. Okay, Naruto answered weakly. Trying to push it out of his mind, he stood up, smacked his face before saying with as much enthusiasm as he could muster after such a devastating revelation. Alright, what's for today? Kurumi already saw through Naruto's paper-thin disguise of happiness, though she commented nothing of it. Instead, she put on her own mask of fake cheer and continued with their itinerary for the night. Alright, next up on our agenda tonight is taijutsu training, and so, the night passed with the two together. Naruto moving his body according to Kurumi's orders, while Kurumi herself taught Naruto the move set of the taijutsu styles that she knew. Break. 4 months passed and Naruto's routine continued the same as it was that first night, where he would sneak out of the orphanage, hunt animals and eat fruits, meditate to meld the minds and skills of the animals that he ate into his own mind, and to wash himself within the cold waters of the small stream. With his enhanced senses, he was never discovered at all, and the skills of the animals that he ate added up to his own, making him a much more terrifying predator while hunting. His body digested the food he ate easily, supplementing his body. The chemicals in his body made short work of any food he had, quickly building up his muscles and bones, making them denser and stronger as he ate the animals whole. As Kurumi sensed this, she slowly withdrew her Yuki from Naruto's body, forcing it to rely entirely on flesh instead of the chakra Yuki mix she used before. Much to her delight, his body immediately responded as they quickly patched up the injuries that the lack of Yuki that previously held them up. Now a little over 2 years old, Naruto's entire body was properly his own as Kurumi retrieved her Yuki from his body, finally having enough nutrition to make his body completely natural instead of being supported by her. Naruto's face even smiled more often now as he finally had full stomachs during his nights at the orphanage nowadays, something he never felt before. During those times, Naruto questioned her about him still living in the orphanage. Now that he can exit freely, why can't they just leave? Living here was terrible as it was, so why didn't they just live in the forests? It's a better place for them both with abundant food, decent sleeping areas, good training spots and more importantly, no one to beat him up. They could live happily out here. Kurumi slowly answered him. Naruto, you must understand. The Hokage himself placed you here, she spoke as Naruto nodded in acknowledgement. If there's anything going on, he'll be able to check up on you here easily, since this was the last place he knew you were in. But he never came by. Naruto yelled back, tears in his eyes. I believe he's too busy, Naruto, she spoke, trying to soothe the angry Naruto. He had every right to be angry too, she thought sadly. Where the hell was that old man and his godfather? Yet she still tried to soothe him, trying to get him to stay there. Konoha is a massive village, one of the strongest. He'll be too busy managing it. Until his schedule clears, it's better if we stay here and wait until he came by. He will come one day, I'm sure. Another reason would be the fact that you are still a baby. A baby found within Konoha's forest, eating animals raw while being able to talk clearly? They will think you some sort of monster, and you might be in worse fate. Naruto was not too convinced by Kurumi's answer, yet he understood that he had no other place to go to if anything happened. It's better if he stayed here and learned what he could from her in the meantime, gaining strength to properly grow and live. Besides, her beatings no longer hurt as much nowadays, not with his enhanced physique and toughened body, though he still lied down on the ground and pretended as if he was in pain. Okay, he spoke, agreeing to Kurumi. Thank you for agreeing, Naruto, she bowed behind her cage. Now how's that taijutsu training going? She asked, eager to teach Naruto more of what she knew. In her mind, she already had an idea on what to teach Naruto, something that she knew would help a lot in his future. It's great, he replied with a bright smile before he immediately practiced his techniques, his body quickly punching and kicking an illusionary enemy in front of him, his tiny feet splashing the waters of the sewer underneath him. Kurumi observed him carefully as he did so, judging his speed, strength and reaction time. And immediately she knew that her modifications had bore fruit with Naruto's stable diet. His punches were strong and fast, a sign of his enhanced muscular system. Every punch was faster than a regular child even without chakra enhancement. As he mock sparred, she saw that he hadn't breathed hard, a sign of his increased stamina which also helped his ability to forfeit sleep. She cannot judge his reaction speed properly though since he had no one that struck him back. "You've learned well, Naruto," she said with a smile, causing Naruto to grin widely at her acknowledgement. "But I have something new to teach you today. Do you want to know?" She spoke with a small grin, already knowing the reply from Naruto. "Really? Wow!" Naruto excitedly yelled out. "Teach me, teach me!" He excitedly yelled as he leapt in joy. Kurumi lightly chuckled as she saw Naruto's excited reply. He really loved learning new stuff. "Relax, Naruto," she said, calming down Naruto's excited jump slightly. "Now, this will be one of the most useful skill in your life ever, so make sure you learn this well, okay?" "Okay." He grinned wide, his smile brightening the dank sewer. "It's how to write, right?" "Yes, Naruto," she replied. "It's how you read the strange writings you see around you. You know those strange lines and forms that you see on things as you left the orphanage?" He nodded. "Those are writings. By learning it, you can decipher the words easily." "Really? Cool. Good. Now, you need to be in the real world again. You'll need a place to write, and the ground is the easiest." "Okay." With a single thought, Naruto appeared back in the real world, looking at the moonlit earth and the woods. "Now what? Use your finger to draw on the ground. I'll teach you what it meant." "Okay." And in that night, Naruto learned how to spell his and Kurumi's name. Happy at the speed Naruto was learning, she upped the ante and began teaching him common letters as well, letting him master the basics of writing. Thanks to his enhanced memory, improved together with the other enhancements to his brain, he quickly caught the words easily. Slowly Kurumi taught him the subtleties and flow of the language as well, not just the words. Break. Only 2 months after she began teaching Naruto of words, he had already mastered most of it from a combination of his photographic memory and his enhanced mental functions. His writing was rough and messy, but she blamed that on how he was writing instead of a lack of skill on his side. Happy as she was, she knew she was not finished yet with his enhancements. Another issue she just noticed with Naruto's eating habits was that he was unable to finish everything despite his enhanced digestive system. He needed her assistance to digest the things he ate. She already knew about this issue from the times when the matron force-fed him the foul things she gave him. However, the problem was compounded with the fact that the osmodulus somehow required more than just calcium. It used everything within Naruto's food. Digested bones, small pieces of earth, everything was used by both the Biscopea and osmodula. To add to this issue, Naruto also ate everything he could get his hands on, be they edible or not. His preomner worked overtime just to prevent his body from being poisoned by the foul things he ate. Poisonous mushrooms, dangerous herbs, dead animals, all of them became his foodstuff. Every day, his body puked a huge amount of random things he ate from his preomner, deeming them not suitable for his well-being. He never cared, even with Kurumi discouraging him from eating them. He knew that he needed to eat, and his own lack of food pushed him down this path. Once again, it was a dark and stormy night when Naruto went out hunting again, the howling winds almost as silent as the night as his liman's ears silenced its baleful roar, focusing instead on his prey. This time, he decided to become more adventurous, taking on something he never tried before: a snake hanging on a tree branch. Snakes were something that he liked to hunt due to their elusive nature, but this time, it's located high up in the air on the tree, making it more difficult to him especially in this storm. The heavy rain did nothing to dampen his spirit and his body, the water flowing down his skin easily. In fact, the rain helped conceal his small footsteps as he slowly tracked his target, rendered visible within the blinding downpour thanks to his oculobe, its slight chakra pattern clear to him despite its hidden form. Naruto slowly climbed up the tree, grabbing the trunk with his hands and his toes, making sure not to surprise the snake. Slowly and surely he crept behind it, becoming stock still every time the snake's tongue flicked the air, tasting it for any prey around him. Little did it know that its predator hung right behind him. With a single lunge Naruto shot forward, his hands wide open to grab the snake. Surprised, it was unable to react as a tiny hand grabbed its body. It hissed and thrashed angrily as it was lifted up by its tail, the triumphant face of Naruto right beside its head as he lifted it in joy. Another meal for the day. It can wash down that nasty taste of whatever that old matron stuffed his mouth with, he's sure. But just as he was about to chow down on the tree snake, it let loose with a lightning-fast strike. What's worse was the fact that the snake struck him right where he was weakest, his eyeball. He barely dodged the snake's high-speed strike with a pull of his head. However, he was unable to avoid the snake's venomous spit as it sprayed from its mouth in a quick burst. Naruto could only watch in horror as the poison splashed into his face, entering his vulnerable eye. Ah! His loud scream melded with the heavy rain and the boom of lightning strikes as his hand reflexively released the snake from his hand. In vengeance and fear, the snake hissed angrily before it struck Naruto's body again and again. Only Naruto's toughened skin prevented the fangs from piercing his body, injecting him with more and more of its lethal poison. Blinded from the poisonous spray, Naruto stumbled on the branch and lost his grip, causing gravity to assert itself, dragging him down onto the hard ground below. With a loud boom, Naruto's body crashed on the ground, sending a spray of rainwater skywards as he planted himself deep in the ground, a human-shaped indentation underneath him. Yet Naruto barely felt the pain from the fall as the snake's venom worked its way in his eye, flowing within his bloodstream in an instant thanks to his twin hearts. Rghhhh. It burns, came his ear-splitting cry of pain, drowned by the heavy rainfall around him. Naruto, hang on, Kurumi yelled between him as she reacted immediately, her powers flowing from her straight into his body, quickly heading towards the venom within his bloodstream. She made short work of it, neutralizing and absorbing it before her powers went towards his eye. Outside, blood vessels crisscrossed over his sclera as the immense pain and deadly venom killed one of his eye, rendering him blind as one of his hand gripped his hurting eye socket. Kurumi immediately went to work on his eye, her powers reconstructing his damaged eye and restored every injury the poison caused to him. Naruto during all this time was blissfully knocked out just moments before, the Susan membrane automatically considering the damage something he needed to recover from. Kurumi, meanwhile, never rested as she checked every single part of Naruto, ensuring he was at his best. Naruto, she slowly called out to him from within, ensuring that he was alive and well. Are you okay? With a small groan he woke up, his naked body showered with nature's blessing before he immediately clamped his hand over the injured eye, still feeling the tingle of pain flowing through it. I'm okay, he slowly replied. I think, he added after a small pause. You scared me, she yelled in reply. Are you sure you're okay now? She asked afterwards, her voice worried and sad. I'm fine, came his reply. Thank you, Kurumi-chan, he spoke with a smile on his face. A smile he never showed anyone else but her. With a small frown on his face he stood back up again, trying to hunt his prey once more. He'll get that snake, he promised. Kurumi just smiled as she heard Naruto calling her with the chan suffix. Being the only person in his life worth calling, she knew that he was just being kind to her. But what came to her mind was not how Naruto was calling her. Instead, the event just now showed her another issue with Naruto's body. He had no poison immunity. Anything poisonous that he ate would usually be pushed out by the preomner, just like she wanted it to. However, that does not include attacks and anything that can inject toxin directly into his bloodstream, like gas, bite or spray, just like the snake just now. He will need a way to filter and neutralize poisons, maybe even use it for his own later on. Once again, Naruto hunted the snake, having locked onto it with his eyesight. As he caught it easily, he immediately grinned widely, knowing that he finally caught his prey. And this time, he gave no quarter as he immediately grabbed the snake's body before pulling it off the branch and biting down on it hard. Blood spurted out, bathing Naruto in its reddish stain as it was quickly washed away by the heavy downpour. The snake hissed and struck, but nothing could stop Naruto as he quickly munched on the snake's body, his powerful jaws and sharp teeth chomped down on the creature. Not long afterwards the animal let loose its last hiss before it died completely, its blood drained together with rainwater to the ground. While Naruto was happily munching away on the snake's flesh, Kurumi assisted him in the digestion of the snake's entire body. As she did, she analyzed its bodily structure and its poisonous glands, integrating it with her knowledge on human anatomy. And while Naruto was eating the poor creature, Kurumi gained her next idea. Naruto's mouth opened to let the rain gather, feeling it pool in his mouth. He always liked the cold, refreshing feeling of rainwater, something he never failed to appreciate. With a loud gulp he swallowed the water, feeling the cold liquid flow within his body. "Ah, that felt great," he spoke with satisfaction in his voice. "Naruto," came Kurumi's stern voice. And Naruto's body immediately froze, already knowing the reason for her call. He knew that tone. There's only one reason she would use that tone. He will have more enhancements. "What is it?" he answered quickly. A bit too quick, if Kurumi were to be trusted. "I have an idea." Naruto finishes her words cheerfully. Her enhancements always made him better, so he always looked forward to it. "Let's hear it." "Naruto, that snake just now demonstrated something obvious. The fact that you had no poison immunities within you," she reasoned. "With these new enhancements, you will be immune to poisons and toxins, and will be able to use them against your enemies as well. It will also give you some new abilities." "Let's hear it." Only in the forest can he talk loudly to his guardian demon, with her listening well despite the heavy rain on them. "Naruto, the first of the new organs that I had in mind is the oolitic kidney, located underneath your second heart. This organ is responsible for two things. First, it is able to filter out any poison and toxic material that you ingested or breathed into your system and will work in conjunction with the other new organs to ensure that you'll never be poisoned by anything. However, if the poison or toxic is too potent, your body would still be disabled for a while, as the oolitic kidney works to filter out everything and circulate them to where they will be removed from the system as waste. The second function is to act as a maintainer to ensure the proper functioning of all your organs, added or original. The second is the neuroglottis, an organ located just ahead of your throat. It enables you to test the toxicity of a food just by tasting, allowing you to identify whether it is edible or not. It also helps you track a prey just by using taste alone. It also improves your sense of smell, allowing you to smell much better than a regular human, or even an animal. Combined with all the experiences of the animals that you've eaten, this will help you to easily detect and track your quarry, enabling you to find even more food easier. The third would be the multi-lung, a third lung that will further improve your blood oxygen levels, increasing your stamina to a whole new level while also allowing you to extract as much oxygen as possible from oxygen-deprived environments. It will function together with your regular lungs regularly. However, when in toxic environments, your regular lungs will close through sphincter muscles located in front of the tracheal entry for the two lungs, instead forcing all air through the multi-lung, which will filter all the toxins and taking in only oxygen. It will also allow you to breathe in water, though you'll be at a weaker position due to your other two lungs closing down to prevent the poisons and water from coming into them. The fourth is an organ whose inspiration came from the snake just now, the Becher's glands. There are two of these glands, one at both sides of your inner mouth and the other located at your pancreas. The ones on your mouth will create poisonous, acidic spit when activated, allowing you to spit acid at your enemies and prey. It also allows you to chew and digest what was usually inedible, like rocks and steel bars, gaining required nutrients from them. The second will receive the biochemical toxins that the other organs received before copying them and recreating them within your body, allowing you to become immune to them in the future. The Becher's glands in the mouth will also create the same type of poison, making your spit even deadlier. All of this together will allow you to survive in extremely toxic environments as well as any poison-based attacks in the future, Kurumi said, ending her explanations on the new organs. Naruto sat still on the trunk of a tree, ignoring the heavy downpour around him as he heard her explanation, remaining silent the entire time as she allowed her to finish her explanation. "So it's to help me survive in poisonous and toxic environment?" he asked. "Yes. But why acid spit?" he asked. "It will allow you to escape any physical bindings that you might be in later in your life," she explained. "Your body also accepts some bizarre substance as food, like rocks and steel. This allows your body to use them as components to create your hardened bones, making them even tougher." Naruto just nodded as he heard her reasoning. That was pretty much accurate and correct, so he had nothing against it. She had already explained before that his body took different nutrition to grow, unlike everyone else, so he understood her requirements. "When will you start?" "I'll start now, just need you to be at a comfortable location," she said, which Naruto obliged immediately as he lay down where he was, feeling it comfortable enough for him. Naruto nodded, knowing that Kurumi could see his nod from within him. Kurumi replied his nod with a similar action before her powers exploded from her within Naruto, once again modifying his body, making him better and stronger. Fall came to the elemental nations as time flowed after Naruto's latest enhancements, littering the streets with brown leaves as the great trees of Konoha prepared to enter the winter season. Yet during the night, life continued within the forests of its massive walls. So too, does a boy of an orphanage in Konoha. Naruto sat cross-legged on the forest floor, a half-bitten snake in one hand as his mouth moved, chewing the animal to pieces with his powerful jaws, his acidic saliva making short work of its bones and internals before he swallowed and took another bite. Within moments, not a single speck of the snake remained, only its blood splashing messily on Naruto's torso. Stretching a hand, he took a pebble beside him before he stuffed it into his mouth, waiting for his acid spit to act on it before munching happily. He continued chewing, his pearl-white teeth shone within the night. At first, Naruto was against the idea of him eating random piles of stone and earth. However, when he tried one of the rocks within the forest, he found out that they had a completely different taste to them. His favorite would be the old, mossy rocks, those that have not moved for years upon years together with the insects that lived underneath it. Naruto's hand struck fast, grabbing the centipede that was underneath the rock he ate. Without even looking at it, he opened his mouth, stuffing the 4-inch-long centipede into his mouth. A crunch echoed slightly within the forest as he chewed down on the unfortunate insect before he swallowed it, the pile of supposedly inedible mix flowing smoothly through his gullet. Once more, Naruto thanked Kurumi's organs as he sat in satisfaction. The rocks that he ate built up his body as the osmogeles chemicals uses it to build up his bones. If his bones were hard before, they were nearly unbreakable by this point. Kurumi even theorized that if he were to eat metal raw, his bones and teeth would be a sort of metal alloy instead, differing so much than the strange amalgamation of materials it was now. He stood up and turned around, his body already knowing where to head next. A river for him to wash out the blood. The delicious waters pretty much helped him in his refreshments too. With a single leap he shot forwards, his footsteps silent as death as he ran towards the river, enjoying the feeling of rushing air on his naked skin with a wide smile on his face. He liked being in the forest, for it was the only time he could be free of everything in his life. In a short while, he arrived at the river, the stream cutting through the small forest. Crouching beside it, he cupped his hands into the waters, feeling the cold water in his hands. With a single gulp he swallowed it, a chilling feeling spreading within his chest. He sighed in pleasure before he dunked his head into the river's surface. With a loud slurp Naruto drank, letting the refreshing taste clear his throat from the coppery taste of blood and chitin. He stared at the pristine surface of the river, as he smelled the strong scent of blood on his body. With a smile on his face he leapt high, soaring above the river with ease. Water sprayed skywards as he dove through the surface with a loud splash, the grin on his face perpetual. He could feel his lungs clamp down, restricting access as his third lung filled with water, allowing him to breathe easy. He swam underneath the water's surface, feeling the chill seep into his very bones before he leapt out in a huge splash, the waters around him stained red as the blood washed away with the frigid waters. "Bua!" came his yell as he landed on the water's edge. Droplets dribbled from the side of his mouth before he coughed out the remnants of water in his lung. The cold breeze of fall cruised on his body, causing him to shiver at the riverside. He could feel his body temperature dropping wildly as the cold nearly froze him to his bones. He may have loved the water's cold, but the loss of heat from this was worse than what he thought. "KKK Kurumi," he shivered, coherent speech thrown out the window. Kurumi just shook her head with a smile before she acted, letting Naruto freeze for a while within the cold breeze before her power flooded his tiny body, warming his freezing body up. He may have a different body than a regular human, but he still cannot survive within extreme temperature for long without any help from her. "I told you not to dive into that river, Naruto," she scolded him. "Look where that got you." "BB, but I want to." His words were cut off as he felt the cold slowly disappear as Kurumi's power warmed him up from within. "Ah," he sighed in relief, letting the warmth spread deep from within him throughout his entire body. "But I want to swim," he continued his words from before. "I know you liked swimming, Naruto," she said slowly, remembering the times when she taught him how to swim. Though most of the time, it was just Naruto diving into the waters and letting his multi-lunged as its magic. "But you need to take care of your body as well. The water's cold this time of the year, and with winter coming closer, you'll be extremely cold, especially from the wind." An idea struck her at the moment. Naruto also had the same thought passing through him, causing his and Kurumi's face to light up like candles in a dark winter night. "Naruto, so what organs?" he said at the same time, quickly knowing just what she was about to say to him. Kurumi sighed with a smile on her face. "Seems I can no longer hide from you," she spoke. "This time it's much simpler and much less though. The first is the mucranoid, an organ that can change the composition of your sweat into a sort of waxy substance, allowing you to endure changes in weather and allowing you to survive hostile environments like extreme cold or extreme heat. This will act like a sort of suit around you, helping your entire body to function regularly despite your surroundings. The second was something that relates to the first, which is the melanochrome. This implant will secrete hormones that will change the color of your skin automatically depending on the levels of sunlight that you're receiving, allowing you to survive a direct blast of the sun's rays during times when the sun is high in the sky right above you, preventing you from getting hit by any heat stroke or sunburns. Together, these two organs will ensure that you can survive in any environment, even with minimal protection," she replied. "Funny how the situation almost warranted the organs you gave," Naruto said in reply. "Of course," she replied sadly. "The organs I had in mind are almost certainly a counter to the situation that you are in at the moment, not to mention your future life, since what you encounter today you will almost definitely encounter in the future. So, it's better to enhance you now than later." "Alright then," Naruto smiled. "When will you start, Kurumi-chan?" "I'll start now," she replied. With her constant tampering of his body, she was now skilled enough to be able to modify his body relatively quickly, needing only an hour or two to create and modify his organs. Combined with his better diet nowadays, it would be easier for her to find materials to make the new organs. "Find a place to sit, as usual." Naruto obeyed, and once again sat down on the trunk of a tree, sitting still as Kurumi began the excruciating process of improving his body. Months passed after the last set of enhancements from Kurumi. And as she wanted it to, it allowed Naruto to last through the winter quite easily, the mucranoid layer on him preventing the cold from reaching him. It was also a testament to Naruto's own strong will as he lived through everything the matron put him through, no matter what. Naruto was training his taijutsu within the small forest, his small body moving and dodging, mentally dueling against a shadow opponent. A quick 1-2 combo from his fists aimed towards the chest of an enemy of similar height to him. A kick swept his imaginary opponent's feet, dropping him before he kneeled on top of his opponent, restraining him with a hand on his neck. Kurumi watched Naruto's nimble movements with a smile. For a child, he was very quick on his feet, with reaction speed faster than other kids were. His frequent hunts and training helped develop his body even more, making him stronger. Yet unlike regular human, his strength does not sacrifice his agility, something she attributed to the Biscope's enhancement of his muscular system. It does not take long for her to realize that the sun almost rose, something that she noted to him immediately. "It's almost dawn, Naruto," Kurumi spoke to him. "Make it quick, we need to return back." Naruto silently nodded, his body on the move again as he practiced the moves he was just taught for another couple of times. Silently she watched Naruto as he practiced his new technique again and again, trying to master it as fast as he can, her heart feeling light and warm at Naruto's sincere efforts. She ran her mind through the modifications that she performed to Naruto and their abilities. Super speed and strength, extremely resilient body, disease immunity, rapid healing, self-maintenance, poison immunity, last-ditch weapon and potential escape mechanism, survivability in extreme environments which includes lack of edible food and sleep, poisonous or toxic air and water, extreme temperatures, highly strengthened senses and faster reaction, and near unlimited stamina. A terrifying fact ran through her mind as she registered all the upgrades he had, realizing that he needed nothing else now. She made Naruto a near-perfect human. Was this what her power was fully capable of doing? Something that can change a being so much, almost considered godlike. It terrified her, just as it does all those time before, but at a much higher scale. Before, she was only terrified of its influence on her fragile, young mind. Now, she was terrified of its sheer strength and ability. No wonder her father took so long to defeat the Jubi. And she swore, she will no longer use her power for biomanipulation again, no matter what the cost. "Hey, Kurumi-chan," Naruto questioned her as he practiced his taijutsu techniques. The sky was still dark, but small rays of light had already pierced through the darkness. It was only a matter of time before he needed to get back to the orphanage, but he delayed it, wanting her to answer his final questions. "What is it? Is the bloodline complete?" he questioned. Kurumi could feel the desire in his voice. He liked those modifications she did since it allowed him to survive and last, even capable of ignoring the matron's punishments. However, by now, she had an answer to the million-dollar question. "Yes, Naruto. I believe it is complete. Your body is complete." Suddenly, his cheerfulness from before was replaced by worry as his movements slowed down before finally stopping completely, the feeling he had radiating from his mental representative towards Kurumi. Kurumi was about to ask when Naruto opened his mouth first. You will not leave me, right?" he asked, worry and fear within his voice. "What?" Kurumi jolted back in surprise. "What made you say so?" But now I can survive without any help," he nervously said as he twiddled his fingers together. "You don't have to heal me anymore, I can do it myself. I can find food. I am strong enough to train." Stop there," Kurumi quickly cut his words off. "I understand, Naruto," she said, causing Naruto's worry to become fear, his eyes as wide as saucers. However, before he could say anything to her, she cut him off again. "But that doesn't mean I would leave you," she quickly said. "I will not leave you, Naruto. No matter what happens to you, no matter how, I will not leave you. I am a part of you, Naruto, and I will be with you until the end of time." Naruto's face lit up like the rising sun as he heard her words. "Really?" He quickly ran towards her cage, happiness shining on his face. "You won't leave me?" "I won't, Naruto," she said. Not that she can leave without killing him, but that's a different matter entirely. "I promise you that I won't leave you alone." "Thank you," Naruto yelled out happily. Kurumi just watched him as her tail stretched towards him, slowly caressing his face with her soft and silky fur, something that Naruto never had enough. He really liked her soft fur. It warmed him up, not in the way his mucranoid layer kept him warm, but in a different way. "Don't worry. Now you should finalize everything, and get back to the orphanage before the matron found out you're missing." Naruto just nodded and began performing small exercises to cool himself down. A sudden fact registered within his mind as he did. "You always said that bloodlines have names," Naruto asked, remembering her teachings about bloodlines. "What's the name of this bloodline?" he asked a question. A question that will be the start of legends. Kurumi remained silent. She never figured out the name of the bloodline. As she puzzled on this one fact, a name entered her mind. A name cool and badass enough that she knew it was the ultimate and only candidate to the bloodline's name. Naruto's eyes widened before joy spread on his face as he heard the name of the bloodline. The name echoed repeatedly in his head as Kurumi said it, a name that he will remember and treasure for his entire life. The Astartes bloodline. Break. Another lonely evening. Another empty day. Surrounded by people and kids she cared about, but lonelier than ever. Such was the thought of the matron as she sat at the kitchen, a cup of sake in her hand and its ceramic bottle in the other. Today, the third year she was alone during her only son's birthday. Today, she decided to start her drinking session early, already telling the kids to avoid the kitchen. Good kids they were, she thought with a sad smile. She glanced skywards, looking at the setting sun as it bathed its magnificent orange radiance all over the world. The sake flowed down her throat as she drank another cup, the burn of the alcohol bringing back memories of her son. These were the times where he always appeared at her home, the orphanage, his lovely wife, his chosen one, which she agreed. With his kids in tow, telling her to be ready and wear some nice clothes, for he's taking her away to some good place. Another cup of sake flowed down her throat. Her face was already flushed, the alcohol working its magic on her as it slowly unraveled her inhibitions, once again bringing back memories of her son. She was always a bad drunk and she knew it. Yet her son never complained, never argued as they drank together at a fancy restaurant somewhere, something his father always had them do after he came to age. A bonding moment, he always said with a massive grin as he drank another pitcher of beer with the entire family following suit. She hiccuped once, the sound echoing within the kitchen, the thick, pungent smell of alcohol spreading within the room. Every time, the same thing, she recalled again, a drop of tear rolling down her face as she remembered her child's words. "Come live with us, Mom," he always said, that good child of hers. His father may have died before he married, but that does not curb his cheerfulness. "Always, hick, you always, hick," she stuttered out before she took a huge drink straight from the bottle, foregoing her cup. Her face was flushed red as the spirit worked its way into her brain. "Now you're not here." Tears fell unbidden from her eyes as she remembered everything her child did for her, almost as if replaying his life underneath her care, and consequently her life under his care. It's all because of that damn demon. It was the reason why she lost her son. It was the reason she lost the only family she had left. It's the reason why so many people of Konoha lost their loved ones. A red haze fell upon her eyes as her rage boiled over her limit. Underneath the beautiful setting sun, she leapt off the stool she was sitting on, and finally decided the fate of the demon as she briskly walked towards the demon's room, her entire face contorted with anger and vengeance. Today, his day ends. Painfully. She may be close to 60 in age, but she was still strong, something she demonstrated easily as she kicked the door to Naruto's cage. The small lock exploded to splinters as she strode into Naruto's tiny room with only one purpose in mind: annihilation. Die, she screamed out at the top of her lungs as rage took over every single part of her, giving her strength beyond anything she ever knew. Her foot snapped forward, kicking the surprised Naruto right in the stomach. "I shouldn't have even cared for you," she screamed again, no longer caring about anything else, only to end the life of this demon. Her leg moved, stomping the sprawled Naruto right in his stomach. His entire body contorted as he let loose a wordless howl of pain, yet the matron ignored him as he stamped his stomach repeatedly, the terrible sound of flesh meeting flesh echoing within the small room. "Naruto!" Kurumi screamed towards her small charge. Her presence was sudden as it was unwelcome, and Naruto could only look in terror as she began her beating. But she never relented, not even as Naruto began coughing hard from her cruel, relentless beating. Kurumi acted as she usually did, her powers augmenting Naruto's incredible healing as her Yuki flowed underneath his skin. His injuries healed within seconds, almost as if unaffected by the matron's beating. "Hold on." Naruto writhed in pain underneath her heels, yet she saw no injury or even a single bruise appear on his skin, still unblemished even after her many beatings. Her rage boiled to an entirely new level at Naruto's lack of visible injury. Despite the pain her foot was in, her anger allowed her to ignore it as she continued kicking his tiny body. Naruto's ribs creaked, but his enhanced bones do not give as it absorbed every hit the matron did easily. "You!" The matron's angry snarl rang within the small shed as her blood haze slowly rose over her and she realized for the first time that instead of screaming in pain, her hits barely harmed Naruto. Almost as if all her efforts through the years amounted to nothing. In one gulp, she drank the remaining sake she had within the bottle she was holding, fueling her wrath further. She bent down and grabbed Naruto's arm before pulling him up. With a single motion, she smashed the ceramic bottle on Naruto's head, breaking it with a loud crash, sending shards of sharp ceramic all over the room. But not even a single wound appeared on his head. He stared into her eyes with a defeated look not suited to a boy of his age. Inside him, Kurumi was yelling out words of encouragement and support, and the only thing that kept him going. His eyes pleaded to the mad matron to stop this, to treat him like a regular child. Not to beat him to a pulp every time. No words came out of his mouth, for he was afraid that doing so would only cause her to thrash him further. However, in her rage-induced mind, the matron took his stare as a challenge, almost as if daring her to go further than that. His blue eyes lacked light within them, as if giving her permission. The honest, happy shine he had within those eyes during the times he was with Kurumi disappeared like a leaf in the wind from the matron's beatings. You bastard!" she screamed again. She grabbed the lip of the smashed bottle within her hands tight as her other hand gripped Naruto's hand hard. And within that grip, she felt his body for the first time. She felt the enhanced musculature he had, harder and tougher than any child his age does. She felt his toughened skin, almost leathery in feel. "Monster!" she screamed out at the top of her lungs. Instead of her usual angry scream, this time, it was fear. Almost unbridled fear at the monster she had within her backyard. What was this monster, she thought? How can someone be like that? Now that her eyes had cleared, she took a good look at the demon in her hand for the first time. His eyes may look defeated and sad, but she saw the strange light at the back of those azure eyes. A strength unlike any other. Defeated and conceding, yet strong and unyielding at the same time. He was around 3 years old, yet his body was taller than any 3-year-old she ever knew, almost reaching the height of a 6-year-old boy, maybe a 7-year-old boy. He did not resist her actions at all, but she could feel the strength behind his arm. His body was heavy, heavier than any 3-year-old, or even older, boy should be. And most importantly, she saw the pair of 3 strange grooves on his cheek, almost as if they're whiskers. Now, more than ever, she knew that this abomination must die. "Why?" came Naruto's small whisper, something that seemed to shook the matron's drunken rage. Her eyes widened in surprise as she stared straight towards Naruto's eyes, dull and defeated yet with strength behind them. "Why?" he asked again, slow, almost like a breeze of wind, yet it seemed to echo within the tiny room they were in. "Why?" she echoed his question, something that Naruto nodded to in his quest for answers. "Why, you ask?" Her grip on the shattered bottle slackened slightly, the sharp tip glinting as the remains of the bottle's sake reflected what was left of the setting sun's light. A spark of hope grew within Naruto's heart as he saw this. She bent down, her face slowly coming closer towards Naruto's own, causing him to tilt his head upwards to meet the eyes of the matron. And what he saw made both him and Kurumi shiver in fear. Fury burned within those dark brown eyes white hot, so hot it threatened to consume Naruto's spirit within its all-consuming heat. Hate and vengeance shone within her eyes, the cruel light so bright it almost blinded Naruto with its intense radiance. Yet all those paled to the feeling coming off her. Her entire body seemed to glow with so much anger it threatened to torch Naruto just from her touch, her body temperature increasing to a feverish level from something Naruto knows not why. If there were a time where Kurumi hoped that eyes were not a window to one's soul, this would be it. Kurumi's desperate yell for Naruto to get away, to save himself no matter what, to hold strong, and that she will help him in every matter was drowned as her face came so close to hers, nearly drowning Naruto with the palpable rage her entire body was emanating. Shocked by her terrible aura, Naruto could only stand still with his mouth gaping as her head came closer to his. She placed her lips right beside Naruto's ears, and what she whispered to him made his eyes widen in shock. "Because you are the demon who killed my family." And with a quick thrust, she drove the massive shard of ceramic straight through Naruto's stomach. Naruto's thick skin may be capable of protecting him from scrapes and scuffles, but the sharp shard was too much for even his enhanced musculature to take. His body gave way easily, only offering token resistance against the knife-like ceramic shard, cutting through his stomach and intestines, gutting his kidney and liver. Blood stained the matron's hand red as high-pressure bright red blood flowed from the massive wound. With a loud squelch she pulled out the shard, dragging Naruto's body with it. "RRRGH!" came Naruto's yelp of pain as he fell on the ground, a growing puddle of his own hot blood beneath him. His hands immediately went towards the massive wound, trying to hold them together even as Kurumi began working her magic from within. The matron glared at him, not the least bit perturbed by the thick stench of blood around her or even his warm blood dripping down her hands, nor his strangely bright red blood pooling on her feet. "Die, filthy demon," she whispered slowly. She was about to turn around and left the dying demon there, laid trembling on his side as he bleeds to death when something caught her eyes. She bent down, ignoring Naruto's pained look or even his groans of pain to stare at the interesting thing she found. The blood that was pooling underneath him before had stopped increasing. Even his trembles and shaking had stopped. Her hand shot towards Naruto's bloodied arm and pulled it away from his body. Underneath the hand was where she stabbed him, but the blood had already stopped flowing from his wound. With a quick tug she pulled Naruto to a standing position, causing him to yell in pain again. Tossing aside her makeshift knife, she took his other arm and pulled it upwards as well, displaying his naked body in front of her. Much to her shock, the massive wound she caused was healing at a rapid rate. The gaping hole that was on his stomach closed so fast that she could see it almost as if it was stitched together by an invisible thread, the two sides of flesh joining together nearly instantly. Barely seconds after she lifted Naruto, the wound healed completely, not a single blemish or scar marking the huge gash she made there before. "You're a monster," she gasped out, not believing the sheer rate of recovery of this demon in her hands. "How can you heal that fast?" Years of experience treating the wounds of kids under her care taught her that even as kids, they will still take a day or two to heal a small wound, and it will inevitably scar for days, even weeks for a tiny scratch. But this demon took a massive tear into his stomach, yet he healed in seconds. Rage erupted within her again as she knew the reason for it. "You filthy demon!" She kicked the door open, and despite Naruto's protests, she dragged him outside the shed, his blood staining his path as he was led somewhere he had no idea. "Let me go," he yelled even as he struggled to escape. Yet even he knew that he won't be able to fight the angry matron with his strength. His suppressed animal instincts took over him in his desperation. Wordless hiss and growls came from deep within his throat as he wrestled against the matron's iron grip, desperation fueling his every move. "Shut up," she hissed. "Stop fighting." His struggles were strong indeed, so much so that she was nearly unable to hold him steady, something no boy its age should be capable. But her boiling rage gave her strength, allowing her to drag his reluctant body, his feet scraping the earth underneath him as his blood marked a massive path to where she wanted him to be. A small cellar with a massive wooden door as its entrance, originally acting as an underground store. She knew that with its demonic powers, it would be capable of surviving things no man can. What happened just now showed her that she couldn't just hope to kill it with regular weapons, or even by brute force. If what she just felt was any indication, he was strong, healthy, in fact, despite the food she fed it. Not to mention the fact that it is tougher and stronger than any human its age. She needed to find a way to kill it, and in the meantime, the only thing she could do is to lock it within the thickest door she had within the orphanage. It took some time, but she finally managed to pry the door open. She flung it straight into the darkness that was the cellar, hearing its body hit the earthen floor with a small thump. "Stay there," she yelled into the cellar, illuminated only by the disappearing sun's light. "I'll find a way to kill you soon enough." With a loud slam she closed the door, latching the massive bolt locking the door tight before taking a lock, further securing the door. She panted hard as she looked at the locked door, the adrenaline within her bloodstream finally wearing off. The pain and fatigue within the short moment finally came crashing to her, causing her to fall on the bloody ground with a small thump, her entire clothing bathed with blood. Taking that time to catch her breath, she looked around, taking in the sight around her. Bloody drag marks stretched from the shed where she kept it before towards the cellar. Before, it was very weak, and she wanted it to feel her pain, thus why she kept it within the shed. Now, she knew that she was wrong. She should just kill it at the first opportunity. What she did was not enough. It was a while before she stood up, confident that the thing could no longer escape the prison she kept it in. Once again looking around her, she sighed. "I need to clean this up," she slowly said. As she stood, her face still red from the alcohol running within her system, she thought of her next moves. She needs to research of methods on how to kill a demon. Maybe have someone help her with it. Her mind was still thinking her plans as she went into the kitchen and washed her hands, cleaning the blood off her. Unknown to her, pairs of eyes stared at her actions. The eyes disappeared, replaced with the small pitter-patter of footsteps, something that went unnoticed by the vengeful matron. "Break! Open up! Open up!" Naruto screamed out as he banged on the cellar's wooden doors. He immediately snapped from his animalistic trance right after the matron tossed him into the cellar. The doors barely budged, his enhanced strength not enough to even affect the heavy door. The sound of his banging echoed within the pitch-black cellar, reflecting across the multitudes of unused items within. He turned around, trying to look for anything that can help him escape. Nearly no light entered the cellar, preventing him from properly seeing the contents of the cellar. Yet his enhanced eyesight allowed him to make out some of the shapes within the old cellar. "Open up!" Naruto weakly yelled before he banged on the door one last time before his strength slowly flowed out of his body. Slowly he slid in front of the door, Tears long since held back from the cruelty of life he went through finally flowed unabated, staining the earthen floor dark. "Please, open up. I did nothing. I never even knew your family." He slowly sobbed as he kneeled on the ground, an indescribable sadness passing through him. A massive lightning bolt seemed to strike Kurumi's heart as she heard Naruto's heart-wrenching pleading. She knew everything, of course. However, was this a good time for him? Guilt tore her heart apart from the facts that she hid to Naruto about him. Nevertheless, no matter what, she knew that this was not the best of time to reveal everything. "Naruto, you need to run away," she screamed, temporarily hiding her distress underneath urgency. "She might just kill you." Tearfully Naruto nodded, knowing that it would probably happen. In fact, if she were to just stab his throat, he might not survive. But it gave him the opportunity to run away and live his life anew, and he knew that he needed to take it. He wiped his tears at the back of his hand before he stood again, distress on his face. The door was hotter than the rest of the room, the only thing that allowed him to view it with his enhanced eyesight. He looked at the edges of the door, feeling for any cracks or slits that would allow him to escape. Unfortunately for him, the door, despite feeling old, was sturdy and solid, something that he would never be able to break through with his own strength. Yet he never gave up, still looking for a way to escape what might just be his tomb. And he finally found one. Light peeked from small gaps between the heavy door and its frame. His fingers were too big to slip between the gap though, so he needed a different method to open the door. Naruto immediately figured out how to escape this place: to melt the lock with his acidic spit. The fact that the locks were outside the door does not stop him. He quickly gathered his saliva, mentally commanding the Becher's glands to produce the thick acidic spit they made. He mentally calculated the location where he needed to spat, noting the location of the locks from the lack of moonlight at the gap. The gurgling sound from his throat echoed within the dark room for a short while. Finally satisfied with his aim, he spat. The glob of thick white acid shot from his mouth, flying through the air before landing at the door with a loud plop. The powerful acid sizzled as it hits the wood, quickly burning through the door. Thick white smoke wafted from where the acid burned, yet Naruto was not perturbed the least, knowing that his multi-lung would quickly help him filter out the potentially suffocating smoke while his oculobe allows him to see even through the smoke, the heat from the chemical reaction glowing orange to his enhanced sight. Again and again he spat, creating a small crater right where the lock would be as the acidic spit burned everything it came in contact with that wasn't Naruto's mouth. The remnants dripped down on the floor, quickly burning the earth it met and creating small holes on the floor, the burning smell growing thicker with every spit. It took him a minute to melt through the door, revealing the simple latch that locked him behind the massive door. He hacked another glob of spit that sailed through the air, and hits the black steel bar that made the latch. The blob sizzled once more, creating black fumes from the contact. It was barely seconds before the latch snapped with a loud clang, causing the heavy door to fall on its frame noisily. Naruto braced his body on the heavy door before pushing as hard as he can with his legs. The door creaked and groaned as it slowly budged, light intensifying within the cellar as the crack around the door widened from his effort. Yet even with his enhanced strength, trying to move the door was still a massive effort as his body trembled from the effort. His twin hearts beat faster as renewed strength seemed to flow within his body from the adrenaline flowing within his body. Moonlight streamed into the cellar as he finally managed to push the door, big enough to allow him to escape. The fresh air flowing in empowered him, giving him the strength to execute his plan. "Naruto, now!" Kurumi yelled within him. Naruto needed no prompting before he kicked the ground as hard as he could, sending the door higher. In a single swift move, Naruto grabbed the earth and pulled his body out of the cellar, quickly rolling on the ground a split second before the heavy door crashed back into its frame, the noise echoing within the orphanage's concrete fence, instantly notifying the matron of his escape. "Naruto, run! Run as fast as you can, and don't look back." Kurumi need not scream those words, for he had immediately leapt up from his original position. He quickly dashed away, going straight towards the part of the fence where he always climbed out, ignoring the alarmed yells coming from the orphanage proper. In one swift move he leapt up, grabbing the usual crack on the wall and used it as a handhold to pull himself up, allowing him to leap straight over the wall. "No!" came the voice of the matron from behind the wall, yet Naruto cared not for her, nor the place as he ran away as fast as possible. No destination in his mind as he did so. He was not even breathing hard despite the exertion he went through. His enhanced stamina on a completely different level to a regular person, even an adult. Tears fell from his eyes onto the ground below with every step he took. The small splashes went unheard within the dark forest as the cacophony of the night echoed around him as his steps crushed fallen leaves and moved rocks as he ran, not caring about stealth in his hurry to escape. "Why?" he yelled to his inner guardian. "Why? I am not a demon. I'm a human, just like her, and I did nothing. I never even knew her family. You saw everything, Kurumi-chan. You're my witness." Kurumi's voice caught in her throat as she tried to think of how to reply to Naruto's words. Should she tell him the truth? Can he take the revealed truth? Kurumi-chan. Naruto's steps slowed down, her hesitation at replying giving rise to suspicions. "You saw everything, right? You're my witness, right?" Naruto's pleading words was too much for her to take, nearly breaking her heart. She knew that Naruto deserved to know the truth now. It may cost her their relationship, but she knew that he must know now. She will not hide it anymore. "Naruto, I know why she did all those things." "What?" Naruto's answer, although short, was enough for her to regret the decision, but she knew it's too late now. Yet, Naruto's next one-word question was actually the last straw for her to take. "Why? I'm sorry, Naruto," she said, trying to apologize to Naruto even as her own tears almost fell, her regret and sadness clear in her distraught voice. "But I decided to hide this until when I thought you ready, and I think you're ready now. Please don't hate me after this, I beg you." Naruto said nothing, only sadness and betrayal radiated outwards from him. Turning around with a shade on his eyes, he whispered, a whisper that he was sure Kurumi would listen. "We'll talk later," went his words as he turned around and ran away, his steps faster and heavier than they were before. And so, he went ahead, looking for a nice place to stay for the night so that Kurumi could finally tell him of the secret that she was keeping. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.